Hello, and welcome to Parks and Recreation. Thank you for joining in today's onboarding orientation training. We are so glad you are here with us today to learn about our wonderful division under the Lexington Fayette Urban County Government. My name is Phoebe Kingsley, and I will be teaching you all about Lexington Parks and Recreation. I have worked for Parks and Recreation since 2017 and became the first person in the history of our Parks Division to work in all three sections under our division. Working under each section gave me a lot of insight of what goes on within each area independently and how the sections come together to collaborate on new and exciting projects throughout the years. Today's training will cover a general basis of knowledge for Parks and Recreation, including the mission, vision, values and goals, chain of command, division and department breakdown, emergency situations and media policies, and how to find important resources after your orientation. This material will provide lots of important information all across our Parks Division. After you view this training video, your on-site manager will continue your onboarding training process and will be there to answer any other questions you may have. We'll start by going over Parks and Recreation mission, vision, and value statements. Our mission is to build community and enrich life through parks, programs, and play. We want our programs and parks to give a sense of belonging, to be inclusive, and to provide exciting, fun, and most importantly, a safe space for our participants. Our vision is to inspire imagination and exploration. The values we uphold are community, stewardship, inclusion, collaboration, and innovation. As employees, our goal is to give every visitor to a park, golf course, community center, and every participant in a summer camp or art program the same positive experience. You are now making those great things happen, and we can't wait to see how successful you are while you are here. Parks has 5 goals we're always striving to maintain. These are the 5 greats: great spaces, experiences, stewardship, engagement, and leadership. Great spaces connect people in a variety of environments through parks and spaces. Great experiences help promote health, wellness, and experiences for our growing population through programs and events. Great stewardship means that we value Lexington's resources through conservation, preservation, education, and sustainable management practices. Great engagement is making sure we engage all members of the community in planning and promoting quality parks and programs. Great leadership assures that the people, process, and finances are managed efficiently and effectively. We serve the City of Lexington and Fayette County residents and any tourists who visit. The citizens of Lexington and Fayette County elect the mayor and council members. The general public uses Parks and Recreation facilities and participate in our programs and events. They serve on committees and join groups that want to make Lexington a great American city with a great park system. Working together and sharing ideas far and wide helps build our sense of community and allows Lexington to be the best it can be. Did you know there are over 100 parks that our division oversees? People with access to safe parks and trails are most likely to exercise more and have fewer health risks like lower rates of obesity, heart disease, and diabetes. Parks help keep cities cooler and clean the air by naturalization. Individual trees help reduce heat by 6 to 10 degrees, and large shady groupings can reduce high temperatures by up to 10 to 20 degrees. Parks attract residents and businesses, increase property values, and property tax revenues. Moving into our upper management portion of the training, at the top of command is our Mayor, Linda Gordon. Re-elected back in November 2022, Mayor Gordon is currently serving her second term as Lexington Mayor. Following under the Mayor, we have 3 at-large council members, including James Brown and Chuck Ellinger, and Vice Mayor Dan Wu. From there, the citizens of Lexington elect 12 district council members who represent each district area in the greater Lexington-Fayette County. The map here provides a great visual for how the districts are divided in our city and county. Our CIO, or also known as Chief Administrative Officer, is Sally Hamilton. She and her team help ensure that policies established by the mayor, council, and charter are followed and develops programs to meet current and future organizational and community needs. The CIO office has direct administrative control and supervision over the following divisions: diversity and inclusion, government communications, human resources, and the purchase of development rights. In addition, each department commissioner reports to the CIO. The Division of Parks and Recreation falls under the umbrella of General Services, with our director reporting to the commissioner, Chris Ford. General Services is made up of facilities management, fleet services, parking, Parks and Recreation, the mailroom, utilities, and security. The Director of Parks and Recreation, who is Monica Conrad, oversees operations, programming, and planning. Our Department of General Services strives to serve other divisions of government in an efficient and effective manner with a customer-first philosophy. All right, now we will go a step further to expand your knowledge of parks as a division. Parks breaks into 3 sections: maintenance, recreation, and enterprise. The deputy directors who are at the top of these sections are Chris Cooperrider, Adrian Thakur, and Michael Johnson. This is our most current organizational chart. It provides a visual for you to better understand how our programs are grouped together to make up each section. At the top of our chain of command is the administrative office, where our director, Monica, oversees all of Parks and Recreation. The 3 deputy directors report straight to Monica and oversee their sections as a whole. There are many areas that come together to make up Parks and Rec, and we will go into that more next. So, this is just another way to read the information from the last slide. As you can see, the Deputy Director over Maintenance is Chris Cooperrider. He oversees all of building maintenance, greenway trails maintenance, aquatics maintenance, landscaping, grounds maintenance, special event support, park patrol, security, and safety. Enterprise is overseen by Deputy Director Michael Johnson, which includes planning and design, grants and project management, golf courses and programs, aquatics operations, and rentals. Last but definitely not least is Recreation, which is overseen by Adrian Thakur. Recreation is made up of community outreach, including volunteers and community centers, natural areas, equestrian and outdoor programs, marketing and public information, therapeutic recreation programs, cultural arts, special events, extended school programs, and athletic programs. We have about 150 civil service employees who are either classified or unclassified full-time workers, along with 600 to 800 seasonal employees that we hire on during peak seasons of the year. We also have advisory boards for specific areas and volunteers who donate their free time to parks. Our fiscal year follows federal and educational standards, meaning it runs from July 1 to June 30th. Our budget breaks down into operating and capital budgets. Our capital budget includes grant funds, fund balance reallocation, park acquisition fund, and public-private partnerships. Detailed here are our most recent budget and revenue numbers. Potentially one of our most important slides is our CAPRA slide. The NRPA, which stands for National Recreation and Park Association, has an accreditation process for parks and recreation agencies across the United States. The NRPA's Commission for Accreditation of Park and Recreation Agencies, which is what CAPRA stands for, provides quality assurance and quality improvement of accredited park and rec agencies by providing a management system of best practices. CAPRA is the only national accreditation of parks and recreation agencies. It is a valuable measure of agencies' overall quality of operation, management, and service to the community. Lexington Parks and Recreation has received this level of accreditation first back in 2007, and we have been reaccredited every 4 to 5 years since. Currently, there are about 200 accredited parks and recreation agencies across the United States. We have a CAPRA team who works diligently and successfully to maintain our accreditation status. That's made up of about 10 people across parks and recreation in different sections to cover all topics that the process requires. That being said, it does not solely fall on these 10 individuals and absolutely takes thought and time from each and every Parks and Recreation employee to stay CAPRA accredited. At the end of the day, working for Parks and Recreation requires a lot of customer service skills while working with the public. Remember to always provide excellent customer service in every minute you are on Parks property, speaking to a patron, or just wearing your LFUCG uniform while traveling to work. Keep in mind as well that everyone is a customer, whether it is a family walking to a park or a coworker from another area coming to your facility. External customer service is critical to the public's image of Parks and Recreation. Internal customer service assures that the workplace will be courteous and enjoyable. Communicate patiently, clearly, and simply. Listen with open eyes and ears. Be honest about what you do know and what you don't know, and when you need help. Seek answers from your supervisor. Be efficient with yours and the customer's time to avoid unverified information from outside sources. Know your area front to back. Taking the initiative to learn about your facility or programming area allows you to be able to answer frequently asked questions fast and easily and helps you navigate complex situations when they arise. Practice empathy to understand and share your feelings with others. Finally, always follow up with your managers or customers to make sure that the problems and tasks are completely resolved. This can also open the floor to gain feedback from the customer, coworkers, or managers to smooth out any other hiccups in the process. Okay, I know that was probably a lot of information, and you will soon find out that there is so much more that goes on within Parks and Recreation that you still need to learn. So gear up, and here we go. Maintenance is a very important section of Parks and Recreation. They manage, well, all things maintenance that is needed throughout our park facilities and properties. Just a few examples of duties that our maintenance crews handle are event setup and breakdown, groundskeeping, facility renovations and cleaning, storm damage cleanup, litter pickup, and sports fields maintenance. The maintenance districts are Cardinal Run, Douglas, Downtown, Jacobson, Masterson Station, North Base, Shiloh, and Veterans. The district bases help serve the smaller, unstaffed parks while maintaining their larger base park. Special events, landscaping, and skilled trades crews are also managed under the maintenance section. Bring Back the Bluegrass is an initiative located at about a third of our parks that focuses on the naturalization process and returning parklands to native habitat types. Naturalized areas aren't just beneficial for wildlife, they're also beneficial for people near them. These areas improve water quality, reduce runoff, and lower the carbon footprint. Over 75 acres of parkland are undergoing the naturalization process, which can include less mowing and targeted invasive species removal to encourage native plants to return and thrive. Some of our other facilities under maintenance include 5 dog parks, which are Coldstream, Jacobson, Masterson, and Wellington, and recently added to the list, Veterans Dog Park. The 2 dog lots are Phoenix Park and Pleasant Ridge Park. We also have 4 skate parks, which are located at Berry Hill, Kirk Levington, Valley, and Woodland Park. Starting in recreation are the outreach, partnerships, and volunteering programs. Over the years, there has been a big increase for community involvement with our parks, which has brought the need to expand our opportunities for public members. The Partnership Program is a program to expand resources for recreation opportunities, improve service delivery, and enhance the amenities offered at our facilities. Adopt a Park helps improves a local park through cleanup, access to play initiatives, programming, and beautification projects. Volunteering for parks gives residents an opportunity to leave a lasting impact on facilities, green spaces, and programs. Park and Play and Summer Playground Days is a mobile recreation program that provides safe, engaging programming in neighborhood parks. We have 5 community centers. They are Castlewood, Dunbar, Kenwick, William Wells Brown, and Tates Creek Community Center. Our community centers serve as vibrant hubs where individuals of all ages and abilities can come together to learn, grow, and connect. We foster a sense of belonging by offering diverse programs from art workshops to family engagement events and activities for the community to stay fit and where all people are welcome. Natural Areas has 4 parks under its umbrella: Heisel Farm, McConnell Springs, Raven Run Nature Sanctuary, and Kelly's Landing. Heisel Farm is a unique park since it is only located 5 miles northeast of downtown Lexington, allows patrons to ride horses and walk their dogs on the meadow paths, and even features a 10-lane archery range. McConnell Springs, also known as the founding and naming site of Lexington, is a 26-acre reclaimed park that is preserved with natural springs right in the heart of the city. Raven Run Nature Sanctuary is known to be our largest park in Lexington, consisting of 735 acres right on the cusp of Fayette County. Filled with so much history, you can go there to hike and to be immersed in nature and learn about the outdoors. Kelly's Landing is the newest park under Natural Areas. It is the one and only park in Fayette County that has public access to the Kentucky River. Neighboring the river, Kelly's Landing provides amazing views of the Kentucky Palisades, which are steep cliffs made up of limestone. You may remember me mentioning Masterson Station Park when I was covering our maintenance facility locations. That's not all that Masterson has to offer. Being one of our larger parks, it is home to our equestrian program, which cares for retired working horses. These horses are used in programs that include individual horseback riding lessons for all ages and experience levels, therapeutic horsemanship classes, and internship opportunities. Outdoor and adventure programs include a wide range of activities to enjoy outside. Some of these are archery, backpacking, canoeing, fishing, kayaking, rock climbing, and bouldering. Additionally, Explore More Outdoors and Mindful Movements are two programs that have been added to the outdoor programming area. These programs typically are located at, but not limited to, Heisel Farm, Jacobson Park, McConnell Springs, Raven Run, and even venture out to the Kentucky River. Our summer camps may be some of our most high-demand programs in recreation, and we offer a variety of them for our community. We have Art Kids, Camp Kearney, and CIT, which is a counselor and training camp, Dance Babies, Dance Kids, Equestrian, ESP Summer Fun Camp, Rising Leaders Team Camp, Golf Camp, Basketball and Cheer Clinics, Tennis and Swim Camp, Therapeutic Recreation Camps, and lastly, Football Combines. Our camps are for all interests, ability levels, and ages. Parks Public Information Office, or PIO, is located at the Dunbar Community Center and operates under the Recreation section. Paul Hooper, who is our Information Office Supervisor, and his team are in charge of all of our parks marketing, updating social media pages, website edits, setting out internal and external newsletters, and so much more. The social media pages we have are Facebook and Instagram. Check these out and turn on your notifications to stay up to date on announcements and events coming up in other sections you may not be aware of. Therapeutic Recreation, or better known as TR, helps provide opportunities for persons with disabilities throughout their lifespan to enjoy activities through recreation, leisure, and play, and to showcase their talents and abilities. Lexington Parks and Recreation is the only TR program in Kentucky to have a Certified Therapeutic Recreation Specialist, also known as a CTRS. TR programs are offered in 21 different recreation facilities and parks in Lexington and collaborates closely on programming with the Lexington Senior Center, operated by the Division of Social Services. Moving right into cultural arts, Artworks has a variety of programs for our more creative participants. Cultural arts programs are primarily held at Artworks at the Carver School, Moondance Amphitheater, Pam Miller Downtown Arts Center, and the Tates Creek Ballroom. Programs offered are indoor archery, karate, kitty capers, and other dance programs, painting, pottery, printmaking, and more. Special events work with a variety of vendors, internal staff, and more to put on events throughout every season of the year. Offering something for everyone, some events include Ballet Under the Stars, Big Band and Jazz, Bluegrass 10,000 and Fun Run, East End Evenings, Fall Events and Programs, Festival Latino de Lexington, 4th of July Celebration, Freaky Flicks, and Friday Flicks. Continuing here, some more popular events are the Halloween Festival and Thriller Parade, Jack-O-Lantern Trail, Juneteenth Celebration, Kentucky Sheep and Fiber Festival, Kite Fest, Lexington St. Patrick's Parade and Festival, Southland Jamboree, Summer Nights in Suburbia, Swingin' Under the Stars, the Woodland Art Fair, and Yappy Hours. ESP, which stands for the Extended School Program, and the Recreation, Enrichment, and Learning Program, also known as REAL, offer affordable, high-quality childcare. For nearly 30 years, beginning in 1993 at Stonewall Elementary, these programs have offered reliable after-school and summer care for Lexington's elementary students through ESP and middle school students who are hosted by REAL. ESP and REAL programs share a partnership with Lexington Parks and Rec and the Fayette County Public School System. The Athletics Office oversees internal athletic leagues like football, cheerleading, pickleball, and summer basketball. Summer basketball includes the Dirt Bowl League, a legendary and historical part of Lexington Parks and Recreation. It has been around since the early 1970s, with the original courts at Douglas Park being just dirt, hence the name. Athletics also partners with third-party organizations to offer a variety of other youth and adult athletic programs. Athletics has a scholarship program to sponsor participants in some of these third-party organizations. Our small but mighty planning and design and project management team does a lot of behind-the-scenes work before a major renovation takes place around parks. They put together surveys, design strategies, and architectural plans for future parks projects. They use grants and capital funds to utilize towards parks improvements like playground rebuilds, trail renovations, and spray ground upgrades. We have 5 golf courses across Lexington, which are Gay Brewer Junior Course at Pickettome, Kearney Hills Golf Links, Lakeside, Tates Creek, and Meadowbrook. Meadowbrook also features our one and only foot golf course. For disc golf, the 18-hole courses we have are at Shiloh, Veterans, and Jacobson, and we have one 9-hole course at River Hill Park. Under aquatics, we have 6 aquatic centers, which are Castlewood, Douglas, Tates Creek, Shiloh, Southland, and Woodland. The 5 spray grounds in Lexington are located at Castlewood Park, Charles Young, Douglas, Jacobson, and Masterson. Jacobson Park also features our one and only marina and boat dock. The dock offers pedal and kayak rentals and a concession stand throughout the warm season, which typically runs from April to October. The rentals program has facilities and areas around Lexington available to rent by the public. Our indoor rentals include the Bell House, McConnell Springs and Raven Run educational rooms, Tates Creek Ballroom, Camp Kearney, Castlewood Barn, Kearney Hills and Picadome Outing Room, and the Pam Miller Downtown Arts Center. Our picnic shelter rentals are full-day rentals available at the following parks: Idle Hour, Jacobson, Masterson Station, Shiloh, Southland, and Veterans Park. Aside from those facilities, there are free first-come, first-served picnic shelters located at over 50 other smaller parks across Lexington. While working in a park or at a parks facility, especially if it is a public area, events and situations of any kind could arise. These events could be non-emergency situations that are not life or death, but may need to be reported to authorities anyway, and usually have more flexibility within the action timeframe. Non-emergency situations could potentially escalate into emergency situations. Non-emergencies could potentially escalate into emergency situations quickly if the appropriate action is not taken when you first become aware of the issue at hand. You should always remember the 2 phone numbers to contact the Lexington Police Department. The non-emergency number is 859-258-3600. And in the event of an emergency, call 911 and contact your supervisor immediately. 2 examples of common events in parks that may need police presence are lost children and physical evidence. During a lost child emergency, time is of the essence, so remain calm but act quickly and thoughtfully. In the event that this happens at your worksite, you should alert all staff with the description of the missing child. Assign staff to search last known locations, notify the parents, and utilize public address systems if available. If the internal search is unsuccessful, then this would become a serious emergency and you will need to contact the police immediately. A non-emergency example would be if you got to work and noticed that there was broken glass or perhaps a needle on the sidewalk outside your facility. You should still report it to the non-emergency line and also notify your supervisor. This would not be an immediate situation that requires authorities, but please remember to not tamper with the evidence or the scene and let police officers handle everything when they arrive. If you happen to see a police presence in your area, this could be an assigned park patrol officer. Park patrol may be any Lexington police officer or sergeant who is assigned to patrol a park, pool, or any special event that occurs on LFUCG property and is being paid through funding provided by the Division of Parks and Recreation. We also have park ambassadors who are civilian employees of the Division of Parks and Rec, assigned to aid citizens by being visible and approachable and serving as a source of information for people visiting a park or attending a park event. Park ambassadors are not security and are not responsible to take any enforcement action. At our large-scale events or even busy times of the year, you may also see police officers handling traffic control for a nearby construction zone, blocking off roadways for an upcoming event or parade, or just providing aid with a broken traffic light. Whether at a special event or parks facility, please be sure to take the necessary steps to ensure the safety and security of citizens who visit our local parks by communicating with your supervisor and any city police. During an unplanned media event, timely and accurate information is of the essence. When reporters don't have any information from official sources, they will seek it out elsewhere, which can be inaccurate and damaging. Examples of an unplanned media event could be a significant accident or incident that could result in sickness or even death of a guest or employee, damage to park property, environmental hazards, criminal activity, or anything else of significant nature that is impacting the operations or reputation of parks. In the case that this media presence appears at your worksite wanting to speak with you, you should contact your manager or direct supervisor immediately. Notify them of the media presence and have them contact Paul Hooper, our information office supervisor. Do not give them any information. Instead, say something respectful and clear like, "No, I cannot make any statements, but let me contact my supervisor." By giving any type of statement, you are being a spokesperson for the city, and providing incorrect or incomplete information may have unintended negative consequences. Reputational risk is anything that has the potential to damage the public's perception of your organization. Common types of risks and causes are unsafe work conditions, malware attacks, data breaches, non-compliance with standards, procedures, and policies, and misuse of branding. When you are wearing an LFUCG uniform, you are a representation of our community, and remember, the public is always watching. Be mindful of the impact that you have on the public when wearing an LFUCG and Parks and Recreation logo, on clock or not. For example, avoid purchasing alcohol in your uniform, driving irresponsibly in a company vehicle, littering or misuse of company property and equipment, and always get approval from the PIO before using any external content with branding. Once this training is over, I suggest that you check out our main website, lexingtonky.gov, for more information like our employee handbook and other important information about LFUCG and Parks and Rec. To find the employee handbook, go to the website and click the Working tab at the top of the page. Scroll down to the bottom to access the City Employee Benefits, Employee Handbook, and additional employee information pages. To get to our internal site, also known as our intranet or Lex link, hit Additional Information, and towards the right of the screen, select the Lex link homepage link. Please note that the Lex link can only be accessed on the city's network domain or off-network with a city network ID. Here is where you can locate information and resources used across LFUCG government. You can search for what you need or hover over departments at the top ribbon bar and select the CIO office. You can find forms, templates, manuals, and policies, and even look up our entire government employee directory here. When you first report to work, you should be trained on how to clock in and out during your scheduled shift. We use the Pendulum Enterprise AcroPrint timekeeping system, and here is a picture of what they would look like at your facility. You should always keep track of your time worked, and remember to clock in at the beginning of your shift, before and after lunch if advised to do so, and at the end of your shift before you leave your work location. If the time clock at your facility is under maintenance or unavailable for any reason, you should refer to paper timesheets and ask your on-site manager for guidance on tracking work time. The federal labor law requires at least a 30-minute lunch if you work over 5 hours, so make sure you work that into your schedule with your manager, unless otherwise directed. Our payroll calendar is available on the intranet, and every facility should have the current calendar posted in a public area for you to access. We operate on a bi-weekly pay schedule, and direct deposits get posted on Friday. If you are a new hire, your first check will most likely be a paper copy, and your manager will retrieve and pass that along to you. Payroll and hiring downtown requires all employees to set up a direct deposit for the paychecks to be deposited into thereafter. If you ever have issues or questions concerning your time worked or paycheck details, please contact your supervisor or payroll coordinator as soon as you discover the discrepancy. The last bit of information here will not pertain to every employee, and in fact, most employees will only use a couple of these applications during their time of work. I will go over them briefly just to give a general understanding of what you may use in your area. The first two here are obviously golf related. Golf Now is a popular way for our participants to sign up for tee times and find course locations near you. Golf Genius is managed by our golf staff and is internally known as Play Golf Lex. You can also sign up there for tee times and find out more information about our tournaments and upcoming golf events. Maintenance Connection is a site used to submit and track work orders for various needs throughout Parks facilities. Pendulum Enterprise is the database that we use to record keep our punch times. PeopleSoft is used for HR, payroll and financing, and management purposes. ProCare is a portal used by ESP to keep up with medical and school documents, and a way for counselors to communicate to their participants' guardians. OnBase is a secure document delivery system that is utilized by the Recreation section for program and camp age verification. RecTrack and WebTrack are both the same program. RecTrack is the internal side that employees use, and WebTrack is the public-facing interface. We use this site for almost all of our programming registration signups. You may receive training and admin permissions for any of these applications depending on your job title. This concludes the onboarding video training. I hope you have absorbed all of the information you can from this brief training video. Just a bit of advice for our new hires, whether you are part-time, seasonal, or even a full-time civil service employee. Never sell yourself short, and always keep in mind that there are opportunities for growth all across the city of Lexington, and especially within Parks and Recreation. You should be passionate about your job on good and bad days, and my hope for all incoming or existing employees is that you find what you love to do. Thank you for being here and being a part of our Lexington Parks and Recreation team. This concludes the onboarding video training. Please follow the QR code to fill out a brief survey about this training. Paper versions are available by request and can be found on the internet under Parks and Recreation training resources. Thank you for being here and being a part of our Lexington Parks and Recreation team.
As Laura said, my name is Adrienne Takor, and I'm your Deputy Director of Recreation. And so what that means is you have joined the recreation team within the Division of Parks and Recreation. So that includes our summer camps, our therapeutic recreation program. I think you've met Jill already. Our community engagement and volunteers, which is Laura. Our natural areas parks, which is Jennifer, as well as our extended school program, which is led by Harold Coons, which you'll meet later today. Recreational athletics, which is Jackie French, and then our Parks Marketing Department, which is Paul Hooper, and he's on vacation this week, but you'll see Paul and his team out at any of your activities while you're here. And why that's so important for you to know is that we all work really closely together. So you may have someone from therapeutic recreation come into your camp. Maybe one day you're at a community center and you're going on a field trip to our natural areas park, Raven Run. So you'll see each other and you'll know each other. We work together very closely as a team. And so you're a big part of that now. We would not be able to do what we do for so many kids in our community without you all being here. So I want to personally thank you and welcome you to summer 2025. Are we excited? Yes, that's right. I love it. Are we excited? Will we be excited by next Monday? Okay. Fair enough. All right. Well, hopefully this topic will be exciting for you because it talks about how to get paid. Anybody in here like a paycheck? My arm is up. I see people who literally did not raise their hands. And I am happy that you are here out of the kindness of your heart and you're not concerned with your paycheck. Thank you. But we'll pay you anyway. So payroll and timekeeping, it's important. If you've worked for us before, there are some changes this summer to what you may have experienced in the past. And so we just want to make sure everyone has a good understanding of how that's going to go. So of course, our goal, your supervisor's goal, is to make sure everybody gets paid accurately and on time. And so in order to do that, we have to have your help because they have deadlines they have to meet, that I have to meet, that we have to meet downtown with our payroll so that the paychecks can get out on time every 2 weeks. So the way that works is that each person, each area has a written work schedule. And so your supervisor creates that work schedule and you should be able to see that posted at your site. And it's based on the information that each individual staff person has given their supervisor about when they're available, when they're not available. If you do need to request time off from work, you need to do that in writing as far in advance as possible. Our city handbook says 2 weeks in advance for known time off. So if you know on July 5th already, you've got a doctor's appointment, you can go ahead and tell your supervisor now in writing, and your supervisor and you can work out what that looks like, whether it's a piece of paper, a text message, an email, but it does need to be in writing. And if you tell them verbally, it is their responsibility to respond to you in writing, because what that does is it creates a personnel record that we have to keep on file. in the event that we're ever audited by the Department of Labor, and let's say they say you're not paying your people correctly. This person was on your schedule for 6 hours and they only were paid for 5 hours and 10 minutes. We'll need to be able to show that you took a break that day, or that you said you needed to leave early, or that you called in sick. And the only way we can do that a year later is if we have it written down in writing. There's no way. There's too much going on for any of us to remember it verbally. So that's the reason we ask for everybody to write it down in one way or the other. The same goes if something happens on any given day and you're like, oh, my kid is sick, or my car completely died and I'm going to be late, or I can't make it to work today. You'll need to tell your supervisor as soon as possible in writing. So if you wake up at 7 a.m. and you're not supposed to be at work until 1, but you know that you're too sick to work, go ahead and tell your supervisor at 7. Do not wait until 1 o'clock, right? So you want to tell them as soon as possible if you're not going to be able to make it to call in sick. Things happen. We understand that, but the communication is the most important part of it so that we can get somebody out there to cover it. And believe you me, Laura or Anthony or me or Jennifer will sometimes be there to cover for people, and we all need as much notice as possible to get that done, because we want the kids and the programs to be safe and to be fully staffed so everyone can have a good time. All right, so then once you've done all that, you've got your schedule, your work schedule is posted, everybody knows what we're doing and why we're doing it. If there's any changes to that, like we mentioned, those are changed to what we call an as-worked schedule. Your supervisor keeps that. You may not ever see it. It's your supervisor just saying that although Adrienne was scheduled to work from 8 to 5 today, she called and said she had a flat tire. She didn't actually get to work until 11. And so the as-work schedule for today for Adrienne is going to show 11 to 5 and not 8 to 5, right? That's all that means, okay? If I worked 8 to 5, then it'll show I was here from 8 to 5. Okay, so how do we capture that? We capture that electronically. Then this is different for some of you, I'm sure, who've been here before. Everyone's time, that means your clock ins, your clock outs, your punch ins, your punch outs, whatever you want to call them, they are all captured electronically now. And we have 2 systems to do that. One is called Pendulum and one is called Sling. And it depends on where and how you work as to which one of those systems you will be using. Sling is an app-based, I didn't bring my phone, it's an app-based system for those of you who work at sites that don't have a traditional fingerprint time clock, which is our Pendulum system. Either one, you've been told already which one you're going to use. If you haven't, you will find out before the end of today which one to use. You are to use that. You're to clock in when you arrive at work, no more than 5 minutes before your scheduled time, and then you are to clock out for any unpaid breaks or time away from your workstation or job site that are not work related. So again, you're scheduled to work from 8 to 11, and at 10:30 you need to take a personal phone call. That's okay, but you need to clock out for that personal phone call after getting approval from your supervisor, right? So what are any questions about what I've said so far? Everybody good? This is pretty standard stuff if you've ever had a job before. Pretty standard. There's just a few things that are specific to us. All right, so then for your breaks, everyone receives a paid 10-minute break for every 4 hours worked. This is particularly important if you've ever worked with kids before or in the summer heat. It is good to take your 10-minute break to recollect yourself, get cooled off, go to the bathroom, because there's nothing worse than working with an 8-year-old that's cranky and you got to go to the bathroom. It just makes it all the worse, right? Anybody ever had that experience? Working with kids before? Yeah. I worked with kids for a very long time, so I understand. Then also, everyone receives an unpaid 30-minute lunch break if you are scheduled to work or you end up working for 5 hours or more. So between hours 3 and 5, if you're going to work a 5-hour shift or more, you have to receive a 30-minute lunch break that is unpaid. Anybody remember signing a lunch on the run form when you did your paperwork? Okay. So we have lunch on the run, and what lunch on the run is those days when it's really too busy, or maybe we're short some staff time, somebody else called in, or you're going on a long field trip or you're at the pool and it's not safe, or you're not able to step away from your work in those hours while you're working to take that 30-minute break. And so you either skip your lunch break or you eat it on the fly while the kids are eating. We call that lunch on the run. And those lunches on the run, you're not clocked out for because you're actually either not taking the break because the situation lends itself to that, or because you're having your lunch, you're eating your lunch with the program. Those situations should not be regular. You should not be having lunch on the run every day. It is the responsibility of your supervisors to make sure that either they are covering your 30-minute lunch time or that there are enough staff on hand to cover those 30-minute lunch times. But for those days when you've got a scheduled field trip or the safety or the situation requires you to kind of skip your break and work through it, that's when we use lunch on the run, and you do not clock out for those, okay? Does that make sense to everybody? We good so far? All right. So what do you do if technology fails? You know, I said everybody's got to have sling or pendulum to clock their time. What do we do? Anybody have any idea what we should do if it doesn't work? A paper timesheet is one way to do that. And what's important about that paper timesheet? It's in writing. That's right. So you come today, you show up at work, you forgot your phone is dead, you can't use Sling to clock in, right? So you'll need to either have a paper timesheet, send an email, send a text message to your supervisor, and they'll tell you what their preferred method is. We don't kind of dictate what the preferred method is. Again, it just has to be in writing. I could not clock in on Sling this morning because my phone was dead, but I got here at 10 o'clock, right? You'll need to be able to say that. Same thing if you're clocking in or out for a break or clocking out for the end of the day. Sometimes if you work at a site where a pendulum is located, the pendulum time clock might be offline or broken. It does happen. You know, technology is great when it works, and then sometimes it just doesn't work. So in the event that that happens, there has to be some writing for that day, as close to the time that it actually happened, that you did it. I clocked in, I clocked out for a break, I clocked out for the day. Does that make sense? Okay, so how do you actually get paid? So each end of the pay period, your supervisors take the time that you have worked for that pay period from a Sling report or from a pendulum report. That's why it's so important that your time is captured there. And they enter it into our system called PeopleSoft. And that PeopleSoft system is the one that calculates what your pay is going to be and then generates your paycheck, right? So if you haven't told your supervisors about a clock in that didn't get captured or what have you, you may not get paid for that in a timely manner. We will always pay you later if a mistake was made, but you know, we want to get paid the full amount at the right times. And so that's why it's important to have all of that communication going on if something doesn't go as planned. Okay, finally, so then when do you get paid? Does anybody know? It is next week. That's our next, it's this Friday is our next paycheck. But what are you going to get paid for? What time? So our pay periods are every 2 weeks, and we get paid on Fridays. But the pay period is for the 2 weeks prior, ending on the Sunday, right? So, for example, we just said we're going to get paid this week, which is June 5th, 6th. What day is it? Where am I? Who am I? What's happening? June 6th, right? We're going to get paid, but we're not going to get paid for working this week. We get paid for working the 2 weeks prior, ending yesterday, Sunday. So for you guys, today is the first day of the pay period, June 2nd. Okay? Your whole pay period is going to go through Sunday, June 15th. You will receive that money on Friday, June 20th. See, I wrote that one down. Friday, June 20th, right? So you start working today at the beginning of your pay period. You will get paid for the time worked from June 2nd through June 15th on June 20th, right? I like to tell people that because pay periods can work differently depending on where you've worked before, or if it's your first job, you might not understand how pay periods work. If you understand it, please share it with other people. A lot of times, young people, first jobbers, or like it's different than my old job, people won't understand how and when they're getting paid. So if you're really good at that, I would ask you to be a mentor and a leader in that respect and help remind each other, this is how you clock in, this is how you clock out, this is when we're going to get paid. I would ask you all to do that because we are all leaders here. And then finally, on the 20th, most people, if you have not worked here before, your first paycheck will be on paper. If you've made a bank change or it's been a long time since you've worked here before, your first paycheck will be in paper and your supervisor will bring that to you on your work site on your first pay period and then, on your first paycheck day. After that, it's all direct deposit, however you set that up, okay? No matter whether you're receiving a paper paycheck or if you're receiving an electronic deposit for your pay, please check every payday on PeopleSoft Online or the paper check. Look at it. Make sure that the hours that you've been paid are the hours that you think you worked, right? That is just good practice. That's good life practice. You want to make sure that the withholdings are right, because the last thing you want to find out is that somehow there was some paperwork mistake and you didn't pay any payroll taxes. And it's the end of the year and you want to get a tax refund, but then the government's like, well, you didn't pay any FICA withholding this whole year, so we're going to keep all of your money. If you're checking your pay periods every time you get paid, you'll find out, I think I worked 20 hours last week and you only paid me for 18. Let's figure out what happened. Or it says I didn't pay any income tax and I'm 30 years old. That doesn't sound right. You know, can you guys look at this? You want to find those things out as quickly as possible. So if you don't know how to check your pay check on PeopleSoft and it's being direct deposited, please ask your supervisor. They can help you with that. And then when you get your paper checks, please take a look at that. That's all I have. Any questions? All right. Thank you very much. I appreciate you. I'll see you around at the camps this summer.
So before we get started, and I'll do the introduction again because I know we're doing some recording of stuff, but there is a video I'm going to play first, but the sound is going to be very low. So we've put the speaker back there at this table here, this middle table, that little box right there. So everyone just need to be really quiet while the video plays so that you can hopefully hear it all, and then we're going to talk about what that actually is, okay? All right, so as she said, my name is Alicia Smith. I am the Employer Relations and Training and Development Manager for all of LFUCG. So our area does majority of the trainings that the city offers. So you all have the mandatory classes that we're doing today, but we also have a lot of voluntary and management training that we do as well. We also do the majority of investigations. So all harassment, workplace violence, as well as grievances, disciplinary appeals come through my area, and my employees are the ones that do those investigations. Okay, so we have a few different trainings we're going to talk to you about this morning. One of the very first one we're going to talk to you about is Title VI, which has to do with language assistance. So the video will help you first to kind of understand what we're going to talk about, and then we'll get into the core of it. Okay.
Let's look at the case of Mrs. Xuan Lui. She is a member of a substantial Chinese community being served by her local police department. She's coming to police today after she discovered her house was ransacked.
警官，请帮助我，我不知道该怎么办。我刚回到家就发现家已经被抢劫了，所有的东西都被偷走了。
Do you speak English?
我只会讲中文，我们全家刚到美国2个多月，我们。
Hold on. Do you have a friend that speaks English? I need English.
No English， 我只会讲中文。
Police services are vital to all people in this country, not just those who speak English. In this case, the officer tried to work with Mrs. Yi, but he couldn't communicate with her. Ultimately, he denied her a service and may have violated Title VI. Let's take a look at how this scenario could have played out. Had proper LEP guidelines been in place at the police station?
No.
Oh, okay. Hold on a second. Okay. Yeah, Captain Carlson, Officer Johnson down here. I have a woman that doesn't speak a word of English. She picked the Mandarin I speak card. Is Officer Wang around to translate? He's not up there. Okay, no, I'll use the phone company's translation service. Yeah, our police department has a contract with them.
Language line, how can I help you?
Yeah, I have a woman here that I believe speaks Mandarin Chinese. I'm going to put her on the line.
Just a moment, please. 好的，女士，我会向警官解释你的情况，他会帮助你的。让我和他通话。
我需要警官的帮助，我的家被抢劫了，所有的东西都被抢光了，我的钱和我的首饰，我只离家了一会儿。
和他通电话。Officer, this woman says her house has been robbed. It sounds pretty serious.
Let's look at what went right this time. First, the officer was able to look at the police station's LEP guidelines, posted right at his place of work. Also, the officer was familiar with the community he serves. In this instance, the police department serves a large Chinese population, so it had hired a Chinese-speaking staff member. But when that staff member wasn't present, Officer Johnson knew he had a plan B. He could call his telephone company's translation service because he knew that the police department had a contract with them. And finally, the police station had vital documents translated into the woman's language.
All right.
The way agencies plan to handle people with limited English proficiency depends on 4 factors. 1. The number or proportion of people with limited English proficiency served in the service population. 2. The frequency with which the LEP individuals come in contact with the program. 3. The importance of the service provided by the program. And 4. The resources available to the participant. Most importantly, any recipient of federal funds must act as its own watchdog, carefully monitoring for possible violations. The Civil Rights Act of 1964 is now and will continue to be an important piece of the foundation upon which we are building a better America. Title VI is a critical part of that law. For more information, you can contact the Justice Department at the toll-free numbers you see on the screen. Remember, all people have the right to programs and services that will enrich their lives. Don't let their race, color, or national origin stand in the way.
So that's videos just to give you a very kind of brief overview of what we're going to be talking about when we're talking about language assistance. Okay, so as he talked about in the video, the 1964 Act for Title VI says no person shall, on the grounds of race, color, national origin, be excluded from participation in, denied benefits of, or subjected to discrimination under any program that receives federal financial assistance. So guess we are one of those groups. So we receive federal financial assistance as at the city level. So we also need to make sure we're in compliance with Title VI. That being said, it's not it shouldn't be just a requirement or something that we have to do. It's something that we want to do. So we want to make sure that we provide language assistance for those people who do not speak English as their primary language, or that might have some concerns where there could be some translation loss. So we want to make sure everybody understands and hears everything the same. So we're talking about limited English proficiency, or LEP persons. We are talking about not just people who might be foreign born or have, a lot of times people equate it to English as a second language. That doesn't mean that they don't necessarily understand what we're talking about. A lot of people speak 2, 3, 4, and 5 languages and understand perfectly fine. So what we're specifically talking about is those people who are limited English proficient. So just because you can communicate with them and kind of understand what they're saying, or they can kind of understand what you're saying, a lot of things can get lost in that translation, right? I like to equate it to even here in the U.S., you're born here, you speak English as your primary language. You might be from the South talking to someone from the North, and certain expressions that we use here that someone else uses there can get misunderstood. So how much more can it get misunderstood when you're talking about different languages altogether? So do we have anybody here who is from the North, northern regions?
I lived in Washington, D.C.
For a while, okay. So most of us are from this area or more southern, right? So let me ask you, if I say to you, bless your heart, What am I saying? And I see you smiling. I think you have an idea. What am I saying to you? Am I blessing you? Am I saying something truly nice? Like, oh, just bless your heart. I want you to. It's more saying, oh, you're so dumb. Like, it's more of an expression that gets used where someone, instead of trying to say something nice, as it could sound like, they're actually saying something mean at the same time. And you may, let's see if you know, so a northern expression that I've heard some is not for nothing, okay? Is there anybody in here guess what not for nothing means? If I were to have that conversation, I would say not for nothing, what do you think I'm saying to you? Or what does that mean? Huh? No knowledge. Okay. Anything else? A lot of times people say, I'm not doing that for nothing. Like, you got to pay me, or you got to give me money, or I have to get something. I'm not doing that for nothing. It basically is a start of an expression of not for nothing, not that you care, but I'm going to give you my opinion anyways. Not that it matters, but I'm going to tell you anyways. And so again, just being that is an expression that is commonly used from English-speaking people up north, and down here we're like, well, what does that mean? Right? So if you're talking about English to Spanish to French to Congolese, how easy can those other things get misunderstood, even if it's just regular words that we use, or people use an expression that is normal in their area that someone else doesn't understand. So that's why we want to make sure that we offer English translation and interpreters to anybody that is within our program or anybody that needs it, so that there aren't those things that get lost in translation. So you'll see, and in the video they had the I Speak cards. With the city, we usually use I Speak posters. They're very similar. So it's kind of hard to see on the screen here, but basically it has multiple different languages where it says I speak and then whatever that language is, so that that person can point to their specific language to get them the right assistance. Now let me ask you, how many different spoken languages do you all think there are in Lexington? 12? Who else? What'd you say? 40. 40?
I would say 100. We're reaching 100.
Reaching 100? 25? What if I told you there's approximately 200 different spoken languages in Lexington alone? That's when I was first told this statistic, I was like 5, 10, you know, something like that. 200. Now that doesn't, and some of that could be just a small group of people that we have here that speak those languages, but Global Lex tracks a lot of that, so they're able to tell us here's what we have, the populations that we have here. So with 200 different spoken languages, it's not likely we're going to have employees that can speak all of those different languages, right? We want to make sure that we can communicate, so we start by using these I Speak posters to try to identify what those specific languages are. Now, we have the phone interpreter line. So like they had in the video, we have language line. So every division that deals with limited English proficiency people a lot, so residents, employees, then they should have a phone number and a code that they would use when they call language line to make sure that the billing, everything is done correctly, and they can get those interpreter services to that person. However, let's say you're out at one of your locations, you don't have it, but you have a parent, you have a resident, you have someone you need to communicate with. Maybe it's a child that speaks a different language. You can dial 311. Does anybody know what 311 is? It's our city, essentially, kind of phone line system. You call 311, you can get a hold of. It's an operating system that helps you get a hold of anybody in LFUCG that you need to. So if you call them and say, hey, I work for Parks, I have a resident I need to communicate with, I need to access language line, they will call and connect it for you using their language line so that you can have that conversation. Usually what I'll say do, almost everybody has a cell phone nowadays. So take your cell phone out, put it on speakerphone, call the number, so that way everybody can communicate in that same conversation. Okay? We also have instances where you might have to have an interpreter present. So there is a list. You can talk to the supervision here to get that list and kind of get some of that stuff set up. So sometimes we have orientations or trainings that we are doing and we have an employee that is limited English proficient. We want to make sure, especially if we're talking about policy stuff, they can understand everything as well. So we will have a trained interpreter show up and come to that location to do that in real time while we're talking, okay? So we have that list. And then also sign language service. So a lot of times people don't realize that sign language in and of itself is another language that we have to have interpreters and have things for as well. So just kind of keep that in mind. If you know that that's something that you're going to need, you can talk to Global X, talk to your supervisors, and we can get that set up as well. Now next, the critical materials. So not just do we need to be able to communicate in real time verbally with people or in person with people, documents. So if we are going to have someone sign or fill out a document, so an acknowledgement form, and I'll show you some of these here, we need to make sure it's translated in their native language, okay? So this could be notices about the LAP person's right to have the free language assistance. Could be applications, consent forms, complaint forms, notices of disciplinary action. I don't know about you all, but if I'm getting disciplined for something, I want to be able to read it and know what it says and what I'm being in trouble for. Letters or notices that require a response from the beneficiary or client. So does that mean that every sign at all of your locations, every document that you have to have 200 different signs or 200 different pieces of paper? And no. You do need to have at least the groups that you come in the most contact with. So you need to have access to be able to pull these others. So if you do come into contact with a language that's just not a normal language in your area, that you can contact Global X, get that stuff translated and over. But if it's a group that you come in contact with a lot, so let's say it's a lot of Spanish speakers, children or parents that are at your locations, it's Congolese. So those kind of groups, you do need to have some of that on hand, because if it's based on the amount that those different groups participate or interact with you all, okay? And I'll give you an idea too. So, and just so you don't know, if you don't know, so the fire department will do free smoke detectors for anyone who lives in Lexington. So if you need some, you call them, they'll get you hooked up with that, they'll come to your house, they'll install those for free. Now, what they'll do a lot of times is they'll go out into neighborhoods and they will go door to door, put door hangers on or let people know, hey, and they'll do it in real time there as well. So a few years back, they were out, I know, and they do it pretty regularly, but if anyone's familiar with the Cardinal Valley area here in Lexington, it's a highly Hispanic population, so a lot of Spanish-speaking persons. So what they did there is they had the door hangers, they had it one side in English, the other side in Spanish. So anytime you're going to be, again, providing a service that's going to be a high population of a certain language, those would want to have in both English and Spanish. Okay. And then division coordinators. So every division has a coordinator for Title VI. If you do not know who your coordinator is, again, talk to your supervisors or call Global X, because Global X houses that list. So you would contact that person for any complaints, concerns, questions that you have or residents have. They would be your go-to for those questions. They compile information every year that they then have to submit to the federal government to show here's how many individuals we've come in contact with, here's how we've handled those, here's the complaints that we've gotten. So they make sure that we're in compliance with all of those rules and regulations. And then lastly, so again, as I talked about in the video, you don't have to have the 200 spoken language information always there at the site, but it's based on the number or proportion of people that are limited English proficient that you all serve, the frequency that they come in contact with that program, the importance of that program for them, as well as the resources that are available for that particular participant. So based again on population numbers, those kind of things, that's going to tell you what you need to have in hand. Okay, so what you have in front of you for both of those packets are actually the full CAO policies. Okay, so you'll notice that the drug and alcohol one is a little bit thicker. That is the entire policy. I'm not going to go through every piece of that. I'm not going to read through every piece of that now, but I do suggest you read through all of that later to make sure you fully understand anything else. There's a lot of definitions and some other stuff, but we're going to cover all the main points for this. So first, the purpose. So on page 1, I want you to notice too, at the top of my slides, you will see a corresponding page number to the pages that we are on in that policy. So if you're wanting to follow along in the policy, the page numbers will be at the top of the screen. So first, the purpose of this policy is to explain that the influence of alcohol, illegal drugs, misuse of legal drugs create an impairment that subjects fellow employees' property and the general public to risk of injury and or damages that would not exist in an alcohol or drug-free workplace. So when we talk about jurisdiction, that first line kind of sums it up. Says the LFUCG shall retain jurisdiction over all LFUCG employees. Basically what that means is we have the right to make legal decisions based on our policy. Okay, and so as we go through this drug and alcohol policy, we have the right under our policy to follow our policy, make those legal decisions. The conditions of employment, everybody who is employed with LFUCG, it is a condition of your employment to stay alcohol and drug free in the workplace. Now, I know we have a range of ages in here, so if you are under 21, alcohol is a no. So if you are over 21, obviously you are legally allowed to drink. However, we'll kind of get into that. But you cannot drink if you are coming to work, think you're going to be at work. You have to remain completely alcohol-free in the workplace itself. Alcohol itself can cause an impairment that subjects the employees, the people that we serve, the residents, the children. It can affect our performance of our job duties and cause us not to be productive or safe. So we want to make sure, again, there's no alcohol in the workplace. Now, when we talk about blood alcohol content or the breathalyzer, everyone's heard of the breathalyzer. So how many know the legal limit of intoxication? What is it? 0.08, right? So 0.08 is the legal limit of intoxication. You can see up here, we have 0.02 to 0.04 is impairment, and 0.04 and above is under the influence. So we are much more strict than the legal limit of intoxication. So for you all, being all seasonal unclassified employees, the main thing for you to know is if you do get alcohol tested, you have to be below that 0.02. If you are above, at 0.02 or above, you are considered impaired for our policy. And for you all, that means termination. Okay, so again, if you are, a lot of times people, it's like, well, I didn't drink before coming to work, but I did drink a lot the night before. If you think that's remotely still in your system, because some stuff can linger for a while depending on how much you drink, it is better for you just to call and say, hey, I can't come in today, than to come into work, have a test and test positive, or something happen, a child or somebody gets injured. Okay, so just keep in mind we are very strict with that. So just make sure that you are careful. Now, when we're talking about legal drugs are something you are allowed to legally have. So whether that's a prescription medication, something that your doctor has given you, whether that's an over-the-counter aspirin, Tylenol, that kind of thing, you can have those at work. However, they have to be in their original container. Okay? I know it's easy to have like the pill cases, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. However, if you have that at work, you're out of compliance with the policy. So it has to be in that original container. Now, especially because you all work with children, all the more reason that you all also have to be in control of your medications. You don't want to leave them sitting somewhere where someone else can get a hold of those. So just make sure that you have them in a secure place and they are in that original container. The prescription medication should be in that original pill bottle that has the doctor's name on it, the way the prescription is supposed to be taken, your name, not your aunt's, cousin's, sister's, brother's name on it. It has to have your name prescribed to you. And then the over-the-counter, same thing. Even if it's those little blister tabs, the little kind of, allergy medications a lot of times come in those little packs that you just push out. You can have those, but it needs to be in that original packaging, or at least the actual blister tab itself that you push out should say what it is on it. So if it doesn't say specifically what it is on it, you need to have it in the box itself. Like I know Zyrtec has it on there, but then some others don't. So just be mindful of that as well. They do have to be taken as prescribed. So if you are taking a pill that says 1 every 4 hours and you're taking 4 every 1 hour, you're abusing that, you're not taking it the way that you should. So just kind of keep that in mind as well. Any questions on that? Okay, I do want to, we'll get to it with reporting and kind of what you're required to report and what you're not. So illegal drugs, it's a little easier. So anything that the federal and state says is illegal. Okay, so if it cannot be obtained legally, so Sudafed is one of those that, yes, you can buy it over the counter, but you can only buy so much over the counter. It's still regulated in some ways. So if you are buying a legal medication in an illegal way, you're obtaining that in some illegal way, it's still going to be illegal. Taking someone else's prescription. Brought that up just a second ago as well. If that's not prescribed to you and you test positive for that drug, it is no different than you testing positive for marijuana, cocaine, meth, or something else, okay? You will still be terminated for taking medication that is not prescribed to you. So hydrocodone, any kind of opioid, anything else, if you get tested, they're gonna, not us, we have a separate group called the medical review officer will contact you to verify, do you have a prescription for that medication that came up in your test? And if you do not, you will be let go, okay? All right, and then taking any combination of either alcohol, legal or illegal drugs that you are misusing or abusing is also going to be considered an illegal drug. All right, so just briefly, the other handout that you have about medical cannabis, it's about a 4-page policy there, CAO policy 63, medicinal cannabis. So the Commonwealth of Kentucky, if you are not aware, they voted to allow us to, our employees to residents to do medicinal cannabis with a medicinal cannabis card. However, this was something they left up to all employers to determine if they were going to allow it or not. It was not something we were required to do. We did decide to create a policy which would allow some employees to do medicinal cannabis. However, in order to do it, you have to be eligible. And there's 2 things that require you to be eligible to be able to have or use medicinal cannabis. 1, you have to get a state-issued medicinal cannabis card. These are not easy to get. Your doctor cannot prescribe these. They have to go through the state process where the state doctors review them and determine whether or not someone's eligible or not. Then they get a specific kind of card, similar like a driver's license sort of thing that you have to carry with you at all times if you have that with you to show that yes, you are entitled by law under that, you've been certified to have it, okay? The other part of that is for our policy, it depends on your job title. So if your job title is safety sensitive, police, any of those kind of areas, or just safety sensitive in general, you are not going to be eligible to use medicinal cannabis. And when we say not eligible to use medicinal cannabis, we mean you cannot use it. You're not eligible under this policy. You cannot use it at all. Now, do you all consider your position safety sensitive? They are, because you're responsible for making sure that everybody at your location, kids, adults alike, are safe. You are supervising those groups. And so anyone who is in that group by job title, if you're not sure exactly, you can contact HR. We have a list of all the job titles. It's not based on who the person is. It's specific to the job title. And for this group, this applies to you all as well, because you all are safety sensitive, and therefore you would not be eligible to use medicinal cannabis. So even if you get the card, it does not matter. You have to have the card and be an eligible employee. And unfortunately for this group, that is not going to be you all, because you're going to be considered safety sensitive. Okay? Any questions on that? And I'll say too, a lot of times people, they don't understand. The state level allows it, federal does not. So if someone is in a federal position, like CDL holders, so anyone with a commercial driver's license, that's a federal license, they can't do it either because the federal government has not made it legal. Okay? All right. No questions on medicinal cannabis? Okay. All right, employee assistance program, we'll touch on this briefly, this is, employee assistance program is something that the city offers for our employees who are in need of some sort of counseling. So if you have a need for, whether it's relationship counseling, marital counseling, individual, financial, that kind of thing, the city will pay for 5 free visits per year, per issue. So if you are saying, you know what, I'm having some financial struggles, I need some counseling, you can call our Access Wellness Group. There should be a handout on the very back of your CAO Policy 7 handout that you have with Access Wellness phone number on it. You can call them, tell them you're a city employee, and that you would like to have whatever the counseling that you're inquiring about, and they will set you up with a certified counselor. Now, what to note on that is they're not going to send us your name. They're not going to say, we saw this person on this date, and they talked about this. They're going to bill us based on number of people for whatever that type of counseling is. So it might say we saw 5 people for financial counseling, 10 people for marital counseling. That's how they bill us, okay? The only time we would ever get any information about you specifically is if we sent you to what's called a mandatory evaluation. So we have a reason to believe that you might be unsafe at work, that you could hurt yourself or someone else. So if you are having and expressing suicidal thoughts, if you are talking about wanting to harm someone else, then we might send you to a mandatory evaluation. They're still not going to tell us everything you talked about. They're just going to say, hey, met with this person, they're clear to come back to work, or no, they need to remain out of the workplace, okay? So they're going to evaluate whether it's actually safe for you to be at work or not, okay? But this is something we offer to all of our employees, and so there's a list of things there, but it's not all encompassing that someone could utilize that service for. On top of that, if you go to Access Wellness's website, they have other resources there that you can look into. So childcare, it's not necessarily that we're going to pay childcare, but it will give you information about other resources that you could have or utilize that would help you with other life decisions or issues. You can, like I say, you can contact that number on the flyer. You can also go to LexLink. It's our internal intranet website that we have. So you can only access the intranet from any city computer, but most of your locations should have at least one, or you can they can get you in contact with one, and you can find it on our drop-down tab under Human Resources. There's information about the Employee Assistance Program. Now, how does this relate to the drug and alcohol policy? Okay. It seems kind of weird. It's just thrown in there with the rest of the drug and alcohol. SAP or EAP, SAP is Substance Abuse Program. EAP is part of, that is part of the EAP options or things that are offered. So for employees who seek assistance prior to any reason to be tested, so let's see my screen's, there it goes. Okay, so this means prior to any reason that we should have to test you. Nothing has happened, there's no incidents that have occurred, you've not been called for any kind of random testing, you have just decided on your own, hey, I have a problem with alcohol, I have a problem with drugs, whatever that might be. You can contact your supervisor or you can contact Human Resources, say, hey, I need help. As long as you didn't do it, it wasn't because, oh, you're getting called for a test and you're like, oh, by the way, I do this. By then it's too late. But if you do it up front, then we will help get you into a rehabilitation program. We will help get you time off from work. Now for you all, you don't have to have our regular standard 40 hours, so you would just not be at work during that time. If it needed to be inpatient or outpatient, all that would be figured out. So we would send you for confirmation testing, which will say, yes, this is the drug that this person is on, or and this is the levels or all that, so they know exactly how to treat you. Then they will meet with you for an evaluation to determine what actual treatment's necessary. Do you need inpatient? Do you need outpatient? And then they would report that back to us, and you would not be subject to disciplinary action, okay? Only if we find out and you didn't tell us, and we've now sent you for a test, and you're like, oh, I'm going to test positive, or you take the test and you test positive, at that point it's too late. Okay? Any questions about that? Okay. So anybody who tests positive but is able to keep their job is going to have to go through the SAP program. Okay? So if you came forward on your own, discipline does not apply. For you all, it's just termination. So our classified civil service employees, they might be able to keep their job on the first time, but they are required to go through the program. If you all test positive as unclassified, it's just termination. Okay? Any questions on that? Yeah.
So if it's a medication that we took,
Mm-hmm.
you need to give a list of medicines?
Nope. And we're going to talk about that here in just one second, but good question. So I think that one applies to you. Let's see. Now, first I'll go through some of the prohibited behaviors. So prohibited behaviors per this policy is 1, the possession and use, possession, distribution, sale of alcohol, illegal drugs, illegal or legal, or I can't, let me start that over. I can't talk today. Okay, use, possession, distribution, sale of alcohol, illegal drugs or drug paraphernalia or unlawful manufacturing, distribution, dispensation, possession, or use of controlled substances on LFUCG property or within our vehicles is obviously going to be prohibited. Being impaired anytime throughout the workday. Being impaired while on call. I don't think most of you all will be on call, but if you are ever told that you are, which that means you're told that there's a potential that you have to come back to work. So let's say you usually get off at 5 and they're like, hey, we got this thing going on, we might have to call you back in. If you ever put on notice that you might get called back in, you're not to drink. Shouldn't be doing drugs, period, but you know that you could have to come back to work. It is better for you to say, hey, I know I wasn't supposed to go home and drink. You're still going to get disciplined for that than it would be for you to come in impaired, cause harm to someone else, or test positive, and then for sure lose your job at that point. Okay? Being impaired in any of our vehicles, storing in your locker, desks, vehicles, or any other place on LFUCG premises, and refusal to test. So refusal to test doesn't just mean I'm not going to test. It doesn't just mean telling your supervisor, I'm not going down there to do it. If you get called, if there's some reason that you have to go get tested, and we'll talk to you about all the reasons that might happen here in a minute, if you fail to comply with any part of the testing process, which includes failing to provide a testable sample. So if you don't provide a sample when you go down there that they can actually test, that can be considered a refusal. Now, I understand sometimes you can't go when you first get down there. So if you have that issue, they will give you water and they will let you sit there for up to 3 hours, okay? Most people can go within 3 hours, especially drinking water that, I think it's about 20 ounces or so that they'll give you. If you still produce nothing and people try that, they'll just try, well, if I don't do anything, they can't do anything. Our policy, it is grounds for dismissal if you do not provide a testable sample. So, if you can get something in there, something that they can test, that's going to be better for you, okay? But you will have plenty of time to do that. So any part of that process, if you fail to comply with it or you don't provide that sample, then you can go ahead and consider yourself going to be terminated, okay? Switching or altering specimens, people will try it and they generally get caught, okay? There's a lot of protocols that they use at these testing facilities, including and starting usually with checking the temperature range. So if that temperature range of that urine is below that level or above that level, they're going to do an observed test, okay? And so a lot of times people don't realize it's a very small margin there. So if it's a cold sample, then they're going to retest you while you're there and it's going to be observed. Refusal to do the medical questionnaire, complete any part of that, or the laboratory chain of custody, providing false information. So that's anything to do with paperwork and false information or not completing it. Failure to report legal drugs, we're going to talk about in a minute. And failure also to report any summonses, charges, issuance of citations, convictions related to involving drugs or alcohol. I'm going to go into some in-depth with that too. So to your question here, so failure to report a safety-sensitive medication, you are required to report anything that could cause you to be unsafe. Now, a lot of people have medications you take every day, never causes you any problems, you don't have any issues, no side effects from it. You do not have to provide any list of your medications at any point to your supervisors. You don't have to talk to them about those medications or any ailments that you have. Okay, that is HIPAA violations. They are not allowed to ask you, hey, I think this is this wrong with you? What medications that you take? They're not allowed to ask you those questions. If you choose to disclose that, perfectly fine. If you want to tell your supervisors, hey, I've got this condition, take this medication, sometimes that's a good thing, especially if you could have, let's say you have a condition that could cause you to have seizures at any given point. It might be good for your supervisors to know just to kind of be mindful of it, but you are not required to report that. What you are required to report is if you are taking a medication, let's say it's usually a short-term sort of thing. If you've had an injury and you're being given a muscle relaxer or some pain pill that could cause you to be impaired or disoriented, if there's that potential side effects, you are required to report the potential side effects. Not what it is and not what it's for. Just that, hey, I'm taking this medication that could cause drowsiness or blackouts or whatever those side effects are. They cannot then tell you to go back and do a safety-sensitive position, okay? They have to either remove you from that safety-sensitive job or allow you to stay home until you're cleared from that medication. So what they'll usually do is you'll say, okay, I need a doctor's note that says you're taking a medication with these side effects and when you're going to be off it. and a doctor's note that says when you're off it. So, because they might say, oh, you're going to be on this for a week. They could also require, okay, after that week, please provide something that now you're clear to come back to those safety jobs. We don't want them to say, yeah, you're probably fine, go back to watching the kids, and then something happens, okay? So if your supervisors tell you, go back and do something safety sensitive after you've reported that, let us know, okay? We've not really had that issue, but just in case. If let's say you are taking a medication that's never caused a problem before, it's been a regular thing that you have taken, but all of a sudden you're starting to have some side effects from it, or you're noticing some differences, then you do need to report that immediately. Same thing, not what it is and what it's for, but hey, I've never had an issue with this, but all of a sudden I'm noticing I'm feeling weak, or I'm feeling lightheaded, or I'm having these side effects. Same thing, they can require you to either go home until you're off of that medication, or find something for you to do that's not safety sensitive. Maybe doing some filing or something where you're not watching children. Okay, any questions on that? Yeah.
I guess my initial question was about with the testing.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're on a medication, that might come up.
Yes. So the process of that, let's say whatever it is, and they do it with everything. So it could be cocaine, and they will still call you to confirm, do you have a prescription for cocaine? I have yet to find anyone who does, okay? But whatever that medication, whatever comes up on that test, the medical review officer, again, they're not employed by the city, they're separate completely. They get those positive test results. They then contact you. So you got to make sure you answer those calls, because if they can't get a hold of you, they're not going to leave a voicemail. And at most, they might call us and say, hey, we're trying to reach this person. You know, they're not answering, and then we'll get you in contact. But they will call you. They will say, hey, this came up on your test. Do you have a prescription for this? If you do, you might have to provide that prescription to them. And then they will say, if everything's good, they'll say, okay, you're fine, and your test will come back to us negative. It will not tell us that you had an issue or anything else like that. It'll say it was a negative test. Now, there are some medications, though, that are on the kind of, especially more for CDL drivers, that you cannot be a CDL driver and take that medication, or you cannot do certain tasks and take that. If that happens, they'll talk that through with you as well before it comes back to us. Okay, does that help? That one, gotcha. All right, any other questions? Okay, so reporting of any arrests, summonses, charges, issuance of citations, convictions related to drugs or alcohol. So please don't get arrested at all. That's just not, we don't want our employees getting arrested. But the requirement for reporting is for drugs and alcohol. So if you get a ticket, if you get arrested, if you get any kind of legal document, arrest, summons, any of that stuff for drugs or alcohol, you are required to report that immediately. If you do not, and we find out, what do you think the outcome is? It's termination, right? So let me ask you, you all work for the city, right? Who else works for the city? Police work for the city, and where's police taking you? To the jail. Who works for the city? So the chances of us not finding out are slim to none. And even if you work outside of LFUC or outside of Lexington, we hear and find out about those too. It happens all the time. So it is just getting arrested is not going to mean you're going to lose your job. Okay. If it was outside of work, you know, something happened over the weekend, we don't know yet if you're going to be convicted of it. Just an arrest does not necessarily mean a conviction. So it's not necessarily going to cause you your job, but not reporting it will. So as soon as you are able, so if you get arrested, as soon as you're released, call somebody and say, hey, here's what's going on. There's a lot of people that just like to go on the jail website in general and just kind of see who's on there. And so even if sometimes they report it to us before we even get the report back from the jail. So just make sure that you report that. Because also if you not being officially, like say, if you haven't been convicted yet, you know, we can't hold that against you necessarily at that moment. But you're probably going to need to go to court. You're probably going to have proceedings that you're going to have to do. So you want to keep your supervisor, your director informed, here's what's going on, so that they can make sure to let you off work so that you can do the things that you need to do. Okay. Now, if it's a requirement, so for you to have a driver's license and you lose your driver's license because of a DUI, that could be something that's grounds for dismissal, because if you're required to have a license and you cannot drive, then you cannot do your job as you're supposed to. All right, types of testing, pre-employment, everybody should be taking that. CDL is part of the DOT exam that any of CDL holders would have to take. Randoms, this only applies to police, fire, corrections, E911, CDL holders, and anyone who's previously tested positive and been able to keep their job. So you all would not generally be in the random pool. If someone is called for a random, because it does apply to them, then they have 2 hours from the time they're notified to get to that location and complete that full process. If they do not, then they're going to be out of compliance. We got to make sure they go immediately. Reasonable cause testing is something that you all would potentially have to be tested for. This is where we have reason to believe that you're impaired. So you're coming to work and you're feeling really sleepy and you're eating all the snacks in the break room and passing out on the bench, smelling like marijuana, things like that. We have a reason to think that you could be impaired. Then your supervisor is going to come pick you up and take you to the UTC, Urgent Treatment Center, to be tested. We're not going to say, hey, I think you're high right now, drive yourself to the UTC, okay? So someone is going to take you and they are going to stay with you the entire time, okay? If you are a supervisor that's required to take an employee, same thing. If they say, okay, I need you to take that employee to the UTC, you take them, you stay with them until they are released to leave, okay? I don't care if you get off at 4 and this is noticed at 3:30 and you have to be there till 6, you might just end up getting overtime. Okay, but you cannot leave them there and you have to stay with them. This has to happen generally between 2 hours of first noticing it. So you first notice someone's impaired, you're going to call, or either your supervisors or you all are going to call HR. It's our benefits section, but you just call HR and tell them, hey, I got someone I think needs a reasonable cause test. Kasheen Horton is our benefits manager. She will talk you through kind of what the process to determine, 1, do we actually have enough to send them? And then 2, make sure that you know what it is and where you're supposed to go. And then no later than 8 hours after seeing that behavior. So let's say it's 3:30. I'm like, oh, I'm getting off at 4 o'clock. I'll take them tomorrow. It's too late. You have to take them within that 8-hour window, but preferably 2 hours, okay? Now, the other type of testing that you all might be required to do is post-critical incident. So that is any vehicle or property damage that occurs, no matter what the dollar amounts, fender bender, if you damage some of the LFUCG's property in the course of your job duties, you're going to get sent for testing. If you have an incident where there's 1 or more fatalities or 1 or more injuries requiring treatment from a medical professional. So you have a child that you're watching that has to have something more than a Band-Aid. You know, if you just put a Band-Aid and they're fine, if they have to have some sort of medical treatment, then you will have to go get tested as well because of that incident. And then any kind of, again, property damage as well, you would have to be tested for that. Now, anybody who is in the vicinity that could have stopped that incident from occurring or contributed to that incident occurring is going to get sent for testing. So if you're at a community center and there's a kid that gets hurt, especially bad enough to go to an ambulance, who do you think is getting tested? Everybody working. Every employee of ours that is in that community center at the time would get tested. Same thing with our pools. If we have someone has to get carted off, has to go get medical treatment of some sort, the lifeguards, the managers, and even the pool attendants could potentially be sent for testing. Okay, so just kind of keep that in mind. We'll have people say, well, this person was driving and they had the accident. I was just a passenger. Why do I have to get tested? Because your actions could have contributed to that. So if somebody's high or impaired, drinking, something like that, they do things or react in ways that could cause the driver to be unsafe or to veer or anything like that. So everybody gets tested. Okay. Any questions about the testing? Okay. And searches. So if you have a locker, desk, or a vehicle that belongs to LFUCG, those can be searched at any time for any reason by your supervisors. Now, they shouldn't just randomly decide, I want to see what's in people's stuff. Okay. It should be that they have a reason to do so. They have some suspicion that you have alcohol or drugs in your locker. They may search those lockers or those desks as vehicles because they belong to LFUCG. There is no right to privacy of our stuff. Okay. However, if you have personal property here, your bag, purse, your vehicles, they cannot go in and just search those. If they do feel that there is a reason that you have something, we have reason to believe you have something in your vehicle, You have a rolling meth lab or something that you've got that you keep in your vehicle. Your supervisors aren't going to go search that. They are going to contact the police. And if the police believe that there is reason to search, so they have enough probable cause to search that vehicle, that is what they would do just in their regular line of duty. They're not going to do it just because we call and say, hey, I think this person has it. They're going to have probable cause to do so. And if they do, then that's who would search, not your supervisors. Okay? And lastly, this is the easiest for you all, is any violation of the drug or alcohol policy for our seasonal or unclassified employees is termination. Okay, so just make sure you're in full compliance. To give you an idea on alcohol, a lot of people don't quite understand impairment itself, and this is not all encompassing. There's a lot of other factors that can contribute, but if you look at the top axis and think of body weight and the vertical axis number of drinks could be a 12-ounce beer, 1.5 ounces of 80 proof liquor, or 5 ounces of wine. If you are 150 pounds, one drink is going to put you at least that 0.02 category. Again, other factors can have part of this. If food, how long ago someone ate or drank, could change those numbers as well. So this is just kind of giving an idea of how quickly that impairment can happen. It is not something to go test. It is not something to say, well, HR said that I am 225, so I'm okay. No, do not drink if you think you're coming to work, if you're at work, or there's any potential for that intoxication. All right, any questions about the drug and alcohol policy? The first thing we're going to do in this section is we're going to do a little quiz. So I'm going to need y'all, I know it's getting later in the day, the morning at this point, we're tired. So I'm going to ask you a question, and I want you collectively to yell out or tell me if you think that is true or if it is false, okay? All right. Failing to hire or promote someone because he or she is of a different gender, sexual orientation, race, ethnicity, national origin, color, age, disability, religion, or gender identity is discrimination, not harassment. Say true. Who says false? Okay. So this one is false. Now let me ask you. You said true. It's not harassment because it is more discrimination. We think of discrimination, right? For our policy, discrimination and harassment are the same thing. Okay? So if you are being discriminated against, treated differently because of your race, ethnicity, national origin, any of these factors or these protected class groups, if the reason you're being treated differently is because of that, then it is going to be harassment. It's discrimination and harassment. Now, one thing to note is age is 40 and above. So if you are under 40, unfortunately, you are not considered a protected class. So it's 40 and above is considered a protected class. Does that mean that because you're under 40, you get to be treated badly? No, it just means there's a different way that we handle that process. So for it to be harassment, it's 40 and above or any of these other protected classes. If it's not if you're under 40 or it's not due to protected class or sexual in nature, then it's our grievance process. So it has to be handled operationally. It starts with the grievance process within your division. You tell your supervisor, I want to file a grievance. Explain to them what the issue is, what you want to happen, and then they will handle it through that channel. It does not come to HR. Okay? All right, next one. Asking a coworker out on a date is sexual harassment. How many say true? Okay, how many say false? Okay, a few of them are like, oh, I don't know. So this is false. Okay, however, it can become sexual harassment. Okay, so asking someone out once on a date in a very respectful way, hey, you want to go out with me on Friday after work? Is that in of itself is not going to be considered harassment. Asking repeatedly or asking in a highly sexualized or egregious way the first time could be. So it's what we call pervasive versus severe. So if you ask like, hey, would you like to go out with me on Friday? And they give you anything other than yes, you're to consider that a no. So if they say, oh, I'm not sure, I've got other plans, I'm washing my hair, retying my shoelaces on Friday, so I can't do it. Anything other than yes, I would like to go out with you is to be considered a no. Because continuing to ask at that point now can become pervasive and therefore can be considered harassment. Okay. It is not against policy to date your coworkers. We do have people who have dated and even gotten married at some point. They can't work for each other or with each other once they're married, but we do have people who work together. The problem is when you do start dating, unless it ends up being that long-term, forever sort of thing, what other issues do you think can happen? At the very least, you break up, and now you got to come back to work with that person every day. You have to see that person, deal with that person for whatever the reasons, if it wasn't an amicable, nice breakup. The other thing is once something is no longer mutual, anything after that can be harassment. So what do you think the biggest issue with mutual is? When was it no longer mutual? So having to determine that. So if two people are dating and one person says it ended 2 weeks ago and the other person says, oh no, it just ended today, anything in between there is no longer mutual. So if someone was approaching someone or doing stuff or saying something to that person at work and they file a complaint on that, it can be considered harassment. So you want to be very careful if you do decide to date someone in the workplace, and just don't do anything in the workplace regardless that would be considered unprofessional or that could get you in trouble. So, and again, asking the very first time in a highly sexualized way, that could be harassment. So think of pervasive or kind of egregious or that pervasive or severe. All right, next one. Requests for sexual favors constitute most sexual harassment incidents. How many say true? Most sexual harassment incidents are due to sexual favors. How many say false? Okay, this one is false. Most people aren't that bold. Does that mean it doesn't happen? No, there are some of those people who will come right out and ask for sexual favors. They will make those comments, but most people are not going to just start it in that way. It usually starts in baby steps. So it usually starts in these small areas to gain trust. A lot of times it can be considered a form of grooming. So it's like, well, if I make this comment and they don't say anything, then I'm probably okay to then touch their hand, and then I do that, and then I can do this. So it kind of stair steps up, becomes these little bit by little bit until it becomes a much bigger situation, okay? So we want to make sure we stop those early. So if there is those kind of things that are occurring, you're not required to tell someone to stop their behavior. You can go ahead and report it, and we will address it. But if you choose to address it with them early and they still don't stop, then definitely let us know. We want to stop it before it becomes something bigger. All right. Ignoring someone's behavior that makes me feel uncomfortable or unwanted or harassing, it will usually stop. So if I ignore their behavior, will it stop? Not necessarily. It could, if they don't realize what they're doing could be considered harassment. Let me ask you all, who in here has ever greeted someone with a hug? You hadn't seen them in a long time, or it was a buddy or family member, like you just give them a hug, like, hey, how's it going? A couple people admit to it, others are like, I'm not raising my hand and admitting nothing. So, did you mean to harass that person by giving them a hug? I hope not. Most people, I've done it many times. It's a friend of mine, hey, how's it going? Give somebody a hug. Just gave Anthony a hug when he came in, because we've known each other for a long time. If your intention is not to harass someone, should it be considered harassment? Right, it's impact versus intent. It doesn't matter that my intention is not to harass someone. If that impact is felt, that person felt uncomfortable by that hug or that touching, they can file a harassment complaint and it can be considered harassment. Now, we are going to look, it's always going to be the impact over that intent. However, we will look at a situation to determine, if it's minimal impact and we can tell there's no intent, then it's not that we're going to throw the book at everybody. It might be that we have a coaching, have you go through the class, make you understand kind of, hey, this is why we don't do that kind of thing. So it doesn't necessarily mean we're going to throw the book at you just because someone made a complaint. Does not mean it is harassment. We get a lot of things where people throw out, I'm being harassed, and it either doesn't meet the definition of harassment or it's not so egregious that we would have to terminate somebody. But let me ask you this. If someone were to say to you, hey, I don't really like being hugged, can you just wave at me? If you keep doing it, are you doing it on purpose? Yeah. You've been told you know better and you're continuing to do it. Now we know you're doing it on purpose. Now we know that you're not going to stop in that instance, and you're generally going to get, again, in your case, we'll probably have to let you go. Okay, so again, there are some people that you don't tell them, you tell them and they're going to keep doing it. And then there's other people that either, yes, they might have been doing it on purpose, but you letting them know, they're going to be like, oh, I'm about to get in trouble, let me stop. Or they just didn't realize what they were doing was something that could be considered harassment. But again, you are not required to have that conversation. You're not required to tell them. You can come straight to HR and we can do an investigation on our part. Okay. One other thing I want to note before I go into the other sections is that your division should not be investigating harassment complaints. So if you feel that you're being harassed, you can report it to your supervisor. Your employees can report it to you all. You are not to investigate it. It needs to come straight to HR. So HR will do any of those investigations. Okay? So we do this class to first describe why maintaining a respectful and harassment-free culture benefits you as well as LFUCG, to talk about the difference between unprofessional, prohibited, or illegal activity as it relates to harassment, and then identify behaviors that could escalate into harassment and how to respond to those. So let me ask you, what are some reasons that you all think someone doesn't report harassment? Fear? Fear of what? What kind of things? Some kind of retaliation? What else? Maybe they're afraid they're going to get fired, lose their job? Anything else? Why would someone not report? Yeah, they have to keep working with that person, and how is that going to change things, or how are they going to react? Anything else?
Judgment.
Some sort of judgment, maybe that they maybe get blamed in somehow, that they did something that caused it. Yeah, a lot of it comes down to fear of something. So what is that fear of? So whether it's embarrassment, whether it's retaliation, reluctance to hurt the harasser. That person we used to date at one time, and now I don't want to see them lose their job or get hurt, but I want them to stop doing that. It could be that your friend, maybe you're not being involved in the harassment, but you see a friend of yours doing it and you don't want to report them. You can report someone else for harassing someone. Fear that no one's going to act or listen, loss of job, upward mobility, or rejection from peers or coworkers. Fear that they're going to be blamed. A lot of times people, they start to internalize, how did this happen? Why did this happen? Why did this person think it was okay? Well, they'll start, well, did I do something? Did I say something? They start to kind of blame themselves. Fear that they're going to be labeled a troublemaker, overly sensitive, not a team player, or that confidentiality will not be honored. We take confidentiality very seriously. So when we do an investigation, the very first question that we always ask is, has anyone talked to you about this investigation? Okay. We let you know that you are not to talk to anybody else about anything we talk about, any point of the investigation. If we find out that you do, we will discipline you for that. And we have. I had someone who was very concerned. It was a rumor mill kind of investigation. They felt like they were really worried what they were going to get disciplined for, because they did admit to spreading some stuff. Because guess what? That spreading of information, that gossiping about, hey, did you hear about such and such? Did you hear about that? That's a violation of the harassment policy. Anybody who participated in that rumor telling about someone else not only can be disciplined for harassment, but it can also be sued for defamation of character. Okay, so it's better just to stay away from all of that. But this person, at the end of the day, they were probably going to get a small discipline, maybe or a warning, written reprimand, something smaller. They were told, do not talk to anybody about this investigation. 30 minutes after they leave my office, guess what? I get a phone call from someone saying, I know who you talked to, what they said, and when you met with them. Okay, well, who was it? What they didn't realize is they left my office and they called the person who made the report to begin with, because they didn't know that's who had made the report, and told them. So we're not going to tell you such and such reported you for XYZ. All of our complaints, even if someone's name is mentioned, doesn't mean that's the person we got the complaint from. So that person who was just going to get maybe a smaller slap on the wrist, they got a suspension. Okay, because it's not only the rumor mill at that point, it's also interference with the investigation and that confidentiality. Okay, so if we tell you not to talk about it, don't talk about it. And again, stay out of any of that rumor mill stuff. So the Supreme Court EEOC tells us that we need to first have a policy that says what sexual harassment or harassment in general is, that it is written and distributed, and that it is part of the policy handout that you have, and we're going to go over that here in just a minute. It needs to define it, also have a commitment that it's not going to be tolerated. We need to have an open door policy, which we do. What that basically means is that you can go to your supervisors, talk to them about what your concerns are. You can come straight to HR, call us, come by, email us. You do not have to do chain of command. You are not required to report it to your supervisor. You can come straight to HR. We always have someone here. I am here. One of my employees, Amber, over here on the side is here. I have two others that are generally back at the office at all times. So you can come to us or your division. We do take it very seriously. So I told you early, we have a lot of different investigations we do. Harassment, workplace violence, grievances, disciplinary appeals. Harassment, workplace violence take top priority. So I could have 10 disciplinary appeals. I get a harassment complaint, it's going to go to the top of that pile. Okay? So we do take it very seriously. We conduct mandatory trainings, which you're all here for today. We also have voluntary trainings, so usually once a month we teach harassment, sometimes more. So there's always options for anybody who wants to take the classes. Sometimes people are voluntold to take the classes. So it might be, hey, I think this person needs a refresher, but we always have options there. And then we need to act swiftly, decisively, kind of monitor for trends to make sure stuff doesn't happen. So even if we can't prove that the harassment happened, we're going to ask the supervisors, it could be you all, to watch the situation, make sure nothing else continues, and let us know if it does. Okay? Because when we do an investigation, we're looking to see, can we substantiate it, which means do we have enough to say that yes, this happened? Is it unsubstantiated, which means we have enough to say it's not harassment or it didn't happen, or inconclusive, we just can't prove it one way or the other. So certainly if we prove that it did happen or that if it's inconclusive, we're going to ask you all still watch it, let us know if anything else happens. Okay? All right, the main differences as we talk about unprofessional, prohibited, and illegal. Unprofessional is something that is not harassment, but not okay. So it's disruptive, it's disrespectful, it's stuff that shouldn't happen in the workplace. You know, someone's picking on each other, being mean, or your supervisor is overstepping in ways that they shouldn't. Anything like that's operational in nature or it's not harassment, you're going to handle at the division level. So again, either through the grievance process or your chain of command. If it is considered prohibited per the harassment policy, then it's going to be protected class, sexual in nature, or retaliation for participating in a harassment complaint. Okay, and then illegal is things like quid pro quo. You do this for me, I'll do that for you. Usually it has to do with sexual favors. Hey, you want to get that promotion, you've got to do this sexual act, those kind of things. Things that cause a hostile work environment as it relates to protected class or sexual in nature. And then defamation of character. So I said before, it seems harmless to say, hey, did you hear such and such went out on a date on Friday? Or such and such slept with this person. I say, if you were not physically in that room to see it, you don't know that it happened. Okay? And if we have a situation where one person said it did, one person said it didn't, we may not be able to prove that it's true. And if we can't prove that it's true, it's defamation. And therefore, you could be disciplined for spreading any of that. And you should in general, because you shouldn't be talking about it at all. But keep in mind, most of the time, the rumors and things that go around are not true. And it's just better to stay away from it and keep yourself out of trouble. All right. So we talked about pervasive or severe. Unwelcomed or repeated is also harassment. Impact versus intent, we talked about. Same protected class. So a lot of times people think, as we talk about those protected class groups, well, we're in the same protected class, so I can say whatever I want to. Okay? It does not matter what your protected class is. You are not allowed to make jokes or comments or statements that are offensive to any protected class. So if you are both females and you're making sexualized female jokes, that could be harassment. If you are both of a certain race and you're making racial comments to each other or racial slurs, it can still be reported and it can still be harassment. So just keep in mind, whether it's gender or sexual orientation, doesn't matter if the individuals are from two protected classes or the same, they are not allowed. Third party, that is going to be someone who doesn't work for the city. So it could be a resident, could be a parent that comes in, a contractor that we have. If you're harassing them or they're harassing you, we're still going to investigate it, and we're still going to determine whether or not We need to discipline you if you're the one that's doing that harassment, or if they are, we might have to, let's say it's a parent that's coming and they're doing something. We can't discipline them, but we can remove them from the programs. If it's a contractor that is coming to the location, we can find another contractor, another business if we need to. So there are things that we can do. We just need to know about so we can report it, or we can investigate it. And then again, this for that regarding employment opportunities as well. All right, just to touch on quickly a couple of different examples. These are not all inclusive, so and that's very small on that screen. So every time we think we have heard it all, there's something else. It's like, they did what? They said what? So some verbal examples, any kind of derogatory, stereotypical, or sexual comments, any humor, language, storytelling that is related to protected class or sexual in nature, repeated requests for dates or sex, referring to an adult as girl, boy, sweetie, babe, honey, anything other than their name. You shouldn't be calling them sweetie, honey, those kind of things. Now, is it going to be, if someone, I've had someone say, hey, if I hold the door open for somebody and I'm just a normal Southern kind of way of like, hey, here you go, sweetheart, and open the door, could that be harassment? Technically, it could if they report it that way, because you really shouldn't be calling people sweetie in the workplace. Most people don't report it when it's just that. It's usually in combination with. So if it's a situation where someone's only referring to females as sweetie and honey, and that's how they refer to them across the board, or they've done other things, then I've had those that have been reported and substantiated. So just, again, if you know their name, you're better off using their name. Just stay away from all of the other. Telling lies or spreading rumors about someone's personal life or sex life, same thing. Your nonverbals could be any kind of facial expressions where you're winking, blowing kisses, licking lips, staring, leering, oogling, or I had someone say elevator eyes. That's the looking somebody up and down like an elevator. Sexual hand or body gestures, forwarding, degrading or derogatory email forwards, invading someone's personal space, blocking them, following them, touching them displaying derogatory or visually pornographic pictures, calendar, mugs. Keep those things at home. Do not bring those in the workplace whatsoever. You would be amazed what people think is okay to bring to work. And then giving any kind of personal gifts also goes in that pervasive or severe. So if I give somebody a card that says, congratulations on your promotion, that's basically what it says, is that harassment? No. But if I give you a card today, a calendar tomorrow, some candy the next day, some flowers the next day, now we're getting into that pervasive that could then be harassment. If that card is congratulations, but also has some sexually explicit things in it, then the very first time. So again, that pervasive versus severe. I generally will say when it comes to giving personal gifts, if you're thinking of giving a coworker a personal gift, keep in mind first, would I give this to my mother? And if I would not give this to my mother, or better yet, my grandmother, then I probably should not give it to my coworker. If you are giving it to your mother, that's a whole nother conversation. But in general, just don't, kind of give yourself that check. And then lastly, any kind of unwanted touching, definitely any assault or rape are going to be considered harassment. Though assault or rape is going to also be criminal. But don't touch people. Don't touch their shoulders, the small of their back. One of my employees likes to say, keep your arms and feet inside the right at all times. Don't have any reason to touch anybody, and you're going to usually be okay and stay out of trouble. All right, in your handout, you have the section that talks about the actual policy itself. I think let me look at yours real quick, sorry. Should be starting on page 5. So this is the actual policy. Again, like the drug and alcohol, read through that one completely on your own. I'm just gonna briefly talk about kind of the main key points. Again, for it to be harassment, protected class, sexual in nature, or retaliation for participating in a harassment investigation. So protected class, the second line, or second paragraph, first line on page 5 says workplace harassment prohibited by this policy is defined as unwelcome verbal or physical conduct that slanders or shows hostility towards an individual because of their race, color, religion, national origin, age, disability, gender identity, or sexual orientation, or any other factor that's prohibited by applicable law. It does give you some examples of what could, again, not all inclusive, be considered protected class harassment. So again, any racial slurs, ethnic jokes, demeaning jokes about protected class hazing, or anything that is related to protected class. Now the second page, so page 6 for you all, at the very top talks about sexual harassment. So that very first line says generally involves any unwelcome verbal or physical conduct of a sexual nature. So it gives you some examples kind of throughout the paragraphs there. So demands for sexual favors, written graphic communications, unwelcome physical touching, offensive jokes, comments, innuendos, that's what she said jokes, the kind of jokes that could imply 2 or 3 different things that of a sexual nature. Don't say them, don't do them, stay away from them completely at work. Now, what we also have happens a lot of times is people ask questions about social media, direct messaging, that kind of stuff. What I will say is anything that happens, if some people are DMing people, if they're at work or the employee, one of the two is at work, we can address that. So if it's something that spills over into the workplace, we can address that. So a lot of times people get each other's like Snapchat or whatever else, and they start trying to message each other. If it's mutual and they have whatever conversation that's completely up to them, again, you really shouldn't be on your phone at work, period, for those kind of things. But if we find that you are messaging somebody and you're sending them sexual, or you're sending them things that are against protected class sorts of comments and things, it's spilling over into the workplace, or certainly if it's happening in the workplace, so you could be off the clock and that other person is on the clock, we can address that. And again, if we're having those kind of issues for unclassified employees, you can be let go at any time for any reason. So it's just better to stay away from all of that together. And the last page there, retaliation, it talks about retaliation for any employee, against any employee for filing a bona fide complaint under this policy or assisting an investigation of potential violation of this policy is strictly prohibited. When we're talking about retaliation, this occurs when there's an adverse employment action that occurs. So if someone reports harassment and they get demoted, fired, salary reduction, something that adversely affects their employment, then that can be considered retaliation. Now, that does not mean because you have filed a harassment complaint that you cannot be fired or disciplined. It just means you can't be for that issue. If we've had people that they make a report and they think that's free and clear, now they can do whatever they want to. And we had one that told his supervisors that we said while the investigation was going on, he couldn't come back to work, so he needed to stay home and be paid. That conversation never occurred. It did not happen. Once the supervisors contacted us, we're like, nope, you need to tell him to come back to work. He ran out of leave time as it was. We weren't paying him to sit at home for something we didn't tell him to do. He was also caught sleeping in the truck for work and a couple other things. So he got disciplined for the things he actually did. Now, if there's a difference between things that you did and something that someone is making up or that can't be proven, so we're going to look at those kind of situations. Is this actual retaliation, or is this person just think I have the go card to do whatever I want to do at this point, which unfortunately has happened. And kind of wrap up that section on that same page, it says, should a supervisor, division director, or commissioner receive a complaint of harassment, he or she will be required to report that alleged problem immediately to the Division of Human Resources Employee Relations section and take no immediate action pending the advice of the Division of Human Resources Employee Relations section. So this is actually on that page 6 at the very bottom paragraph there. That is the part that talks about supervisors. So how many of you all, are you all supervisors in here? Some of you all? Okay. Supervisors are required to report harassment. So if you go to your supervisor or you call HR and you say, hey, I don't want anything to happen, I just want to talk to you about this. If what you are describing could be considered harassment, they are required to report it. If they don't, they themselves can be disciplined, okay? So in most cases, if people call HR, it's kind of like, well, if you don't want anything to happen, why are you calling? So we need to address these situations. And I'm going to tell you, if you say that to me, hey, I don't want anything to happen, I just want to let you all know, I'm going to tell you up front, if you tell me something that could be considered harassment, I have to investigate it. I am now on notice, I have to, because if something else happens again and I didn't look into it or investigate it to begin with, I could be in trouble, your supervisors can be in trouble, okay? So again, they can ask questions. What happened, when did it happen, what's occurring, so they can determine does this meet the definition of harassment or not. But if it does or could potentially, they have to call HR and report it through us, and they cannot do any further investigation, okay? All right, now back on that page 7, it also says all investigations of alleged harassment will be conducted by the Division of Human Resources, Employee Relations Section. All reports will be treated as serious in nature, and once we receive a report of violation, will be promptly and thoroughly investigated. So again, takes that top priority. And then any supervisor or employee who has been found after appropriate investigation to have harassed another employee or have violated any portion of this policy will be subject to the appropriate discipline, which could include charges filed for dismissal. Or in your case, it's going to be a very quick, thank you, your services are no longer needed. Okay? Just to kind of wrap things up, it's your responsibility to know what harassment is, to communicate if you have any questions. Call HR to get advice. Don't just keep it in the department. Document anything that you think could be harassment. Maybe it's not yet, but you have some concerns, date, time, witnesses, any of that. Get involved. Don't turn the other cheek. So if you see it happening with someone else, report it. Follow the policy yourself. Be a leader, not a follower. Go to training classes when they're offered. Also report things immediately. The sooner you report something, the more likely we're going to be able to substantiate it. If you wait, there's not a thing that says, okay, it's been a month, 2 months, 3 months, you can't report it. You absolutely can. But what do you think the problem is if you wait 3 months to report something? It's going to be hard to get witnesses. It's also going to be hard for people to remember everything and have everything clear, because it happened directly to you. It might all still be clear in your mind, but if it happened with someone and someone else's, it didn't happen directly with them, they might, well, I think this might have happened. I think that might have happened. So their mindset might not be as clear. Also, video footage. A lot of our locations have video footage, but they also have video retention. And what that means is if that footage is not pulled before that retention period, there's no video. So it could be, a lot of our locations are 30 days, some are 45 days, some are more or less. So the sooner you report it, the more likely we can substantiate it. And then if you feel like someone is not intending to harass you, you can have the conversation. These are just some iMessages to give you a suggestion. So you could say, describing the behavior that's occurring, how it makes you feel, an alternative to that. So it could be, hey, when you give me a hug, it makes me feel uncomfortable. I prefer that you just wave at me instead. So it's just ways to have that conversation. Again, not required to. And then lastly, to stay on the right side of the line, so to keep from having harassment investigations, at least substantiate. I can't promise that someone won't file something, but just because someone calls something harassment does not mean that it is. And if it's not, we're going to kick it back to the division. Okay? So, but first, just treat everybody with dignity and respect. Next, know what those boundaries are. We talked about unprofessional, prohibited, illegal. It's kind of a stair step. As long as you keep things professional, you're not usually going to stair step into something that's now harassment or that is going to be considered illegal. So just kind of recognize those situations, especially things that maybe they're not harassment yet, but they could escalate. So just kind of watch for that. Know and abide by the policy yourself. And then also remember that federal laws prohibit discrimination and harassment based on those protected class areas. So again, race, color, sex with or without sexual conduct, religion, national origin, age, disability, or retaliation, or for complaining about discrimination or participating in an investigation. So retaliation could be the accused, the accuser, or you were just called in for a witness and you feel like you're being retaliated against. That's going to be a violation of the policy as well. Okay? All right. Any questions about anything we talked about at all? All right. Thank you all. You, as part of your kind of acknowledgement form that they're going to have you all fill out throughout this training, all of the specific acknowledgement forms for or wording for the harassment, drug and alcohol, medical cannabis, all of that is going to be on that form that they'll have you sign. So just make sure you read through that statement. It basically just says that you have received training on it, you acknowledge that you have gotten the information. Okay? All right. Thank you all.
So we're going to talk a little bit about staying safe at camp. But to start with, I want to ask you all, why would we want to get kids outside? What are the benefits of being outside for us as adults, for kids, for whomever? What? Fresh air. Exercise. Lots of space, right? It gets a little chaotic inside with a whole bunch of kids. What else? Any other reasons we would get kids outside?
Because it's what we do. It's Parks and Recreation.
Yes. Well, Right. There you go. Number one. So this is like one of my most favorite topics to discuss, and there's tons of research on the impacts of being outdoors for all of us, not just young people, but old people like myself. There's lots of different reasons why. Physical health, you know, kids at school in formal education settings may get a 20-minute recess these days. That's not enough for anybody. Stress reduction, there are studies after studies after studies that show the benefits, obviously the physical benefits, but the psychological and emotional benefits to spending more time outside. It improves our attentiveness, believe it or not. If you get your kids outside and then you bring them inside, guess what? They're going to be more attentive. They're going to be a little bit calmer than if you just kept them inside all day long. It is an active form of learning, and Miss Jill just kind of referred to that. They've got a garden at William Wells Brown. That is a get your hands dirty, living and learning sort of project where people are able to learn lots of different things, math, science, agriculture, whatever that may be, but they're able to do that in the outdoors. Emotional expression, stronger senses, and I think I kind of hit on this earlier, courage, having more courage. A lot of kids are afraid of the outdoors. A lot of kids are afraid of bugs. A lot of kids are afraid of getting their shoes dirty. We talked about that last week. And so getting outside kind of gives young and old more courage to do things that they haven't tried before. So those are the benefits to getting kids outside. However, we all know with benefits, tension and trade-off. There's always going to be a drawback to everything, right? So when we get kids outside, there are also going to be risks to any sort of outdoor play. The benefits certainly outweigh the risks, but there are still going to be risks that we all need to be prepared for. What are some of those risks?
Bee stings.
Bee stings.
Scraped knees.
Scraped knees, injuries, heat, poison ivy, snakes. Snakes are, they're nothing. Just don't go near them and you're fine. Say again?
Powassan virus this season.
I can't hear you.
I said this season the Powassan virus is moving its way from the north down. Tick-borne illness creating encephalitis.
Right, so tick-borne, and we're going to talk about tick-borne illness here in just a few minutes. So it's important for all of us. It should never prevent us from getting kids outside, but we certainly should be prepared before we go outside, while we're outside, and when we come back in, we need to take certain precautions to be sure that everybody, including ourselves, are safe. Heat-related illness, severe storms, tornadoes, lightning storms, stinging insects, allergies, poisonous plants, and much more. So the first thing we're going to talk about are insects and bugs. As we all know, and we're all seeing, I don't know if y'all have been outside in the last week, but everything is buzzing. I've been sitting out on my back porch. I have a lilac bush. It's beautiful. It's fragrant. And there are just bees everywhere. And I'm loving it, but with that comes the increase of getting stung by a bee. Hotter outside, the more active insects are going to be. Most of the time, they're just a nuisance. My husband and I were at Sav's the other night having dinner, and there was this family at the table next to us, and there was a bee on their table, and I mean, they made this huge, like everybody had to get up and on a Friday night try to go find a new table because of a bee that was just like sitting, you know, wasn't doing anything. Usually, they're just a nuisance. They're not going to do anything. However, if you have allergies, which in that case, maybe that family had some allergy, they can cause health problems. So there are the biters and the stingers. We've got bees, wasps, hornets, yellow jackets, fire ants, and ticks. 2 million people in the United States are allergic to stinging insects. An allergic reaction, a lot of times we think it's going to be instantaneous, not always. It can happen immediately within minutes. It can even happen up to hours. So if Miss Jill gets stung right now, she may have an allergic reaction tonight at midnight. So it's not like a, oh, you know, Miss Jill got stung, she's fine kind of thing. You definitely have to make sure that you're making the proper reports, because up to 48 hours, somebody could have a reaction to that sting. People who have experienced a systemic allergic reaction to an insect sting have a 60% chance of the same type or worse reaction to the next sting. So if you've had it before, or you have a kid in your camp that you know has had a reaction before, it is quite probable that they will have at least as bad, but probably worse of a reaction the next time it happens. How do we prevent them from happening at all? Insects, you know, they really like flowers for a reason, and they're attracted to, through evolution, they're attracted to things that smell good because they have to fulfill their role as pollinators. So the flowers smell good, so the bees will be attracted and they can pollinate, right? Same thing with our perfumes, same thing with anything that we have on that smells really good. Cologne, hairspray, you know, really like floral scented deodorant, especially if you're out in the heat. Anything like that is going to attract stinging insects. Picnic food, open containers, garbage areas. So when you think about the placement of those types of things, number one, you really don't want to have any smelly good candles or smelly good sprays or that kind of thing at camp. But when you think about the placement of your garbage cans at camp, keep them away from where kids are going to congregate after lunch, right? Make sure that you're placing things in a way that you're not going to put all your lunch trash over here, and then 45 minutes later, the smell is going to kind of warm up a little bit, get yucky, attract bugs, and then the kids are going to be right there, right? Symptoms of an allergic reaction, hives, itching, and swelling in areas other than the sting site. If you get stung, you're obviously going to have some type of reaction right at the sting site. But if you're having a real, true systemic bodily reaction, you're going to start having things pop up everywhere, not just at the site. Tightness in the chest and difficulty breathing, hoarse voice, swelling of the tongue, dizziness or a really quick drop in blood pressure, as well as potential unconsciousness or cardiac arrest. And that is called anaphylaxis, which is a severe allergic reaction. There are different treatments for it, which you guys have all heard of, like the EpiPen. Some people can just take a Benadryl and feel better. That's really not for any of us to decide, right? How would we determine how we treat one of our campers?
You have to call the parents to get permission.
Right. Check their medical forms to see. Obviously, you're going to read those forms before camp even starts. So if I know that Kenny has had a severe reaction to a bee sting before, and Kenny's supposed to carry an EpiPen with him, I've got to make sure that if Kenny gets stung, boom, I just have to know that. And like Jill said, I've got to be able to reach out to the family and figure it out, right? It can be an EpiPen, self-injected or administered by a doctor. Like I just said, checking registration documents for allergies, any previous allergic reactions, or any other medical issues that a camper may have. And this is, I'm saying camper, but it's also for your staff or for you, right? So, you know, if you have staff that's allergic or has had a reaction before, make sure you know that about them as well. It is very important to call for medical assistance and the parents/caregivers immediately. So if you've administered that EpiPen, you're not just going to leave it at that and say, all right, you know, well, when your parents come in 6 hours, we'll let them know. No, you got to make phone calls right then and there. Basic first aid for stings. So this is just anybody, not somebody that tends to have a more severe reaction. A lot of times, what do we do when somebody gets stung? What do we pull out? What's our first go-to tool? Baking soda, would you say? Would you say? Tweezers. Never use tweezers. Because, you know, like with a bee sting, the little stinger gets stuck and then there's like the little bee butt that's stuck with it. If you squeeze that little bee butt, what are you doing? You're spreading more, potentially, into the system. And so to remove the stinger, the best way to do it is to scrape. I saw on here, or I saw online, not on here, but like using a credit card to scrape it. Now, I'm not going to recommend that you use your credit card on a camper's open wound, right? Because, you know, who knows who's touched your credit card. But it's more important to scrape it than it is to pinch it or try to get it with tweezers. Because if you're just squeezing that venom right into the system rather than kind of pushing it out. Wasps, hornets, and yellow jackets will sting repeatedly. They won't leave a stinger behind. A bee, once it stings you, that's it, it's dead. But the rest of them, they won't leave a stinger behind. If someone gets stung and breathing difficulties develop, or if somebody is starting to have an adverse reaction, first thing you're going to do, call 911, right? Most of your camps are relatively central in the city. I think of Kenny really is like the first responder of all first responders in my mind. He knows exactly what to do in an emergency. But out at Heisel Farm Park, for example, it's going to take first responders way longer to get there than if we needed somebody to get to Castlewood, for example, just based on location in the city, right? Call 911. If it seems like any of these sort of more severe symptoms are starting to occur. If it's just a bee sting and it's just, right on the site, treat it. I'm going to tell you how to wash the bite and sting area well with soap and water and just an ice pack. Certainly, I would write it up in a report to the parents, give it to them at the end of the day, because if a child does end up having an allergic reaction later on, remember it can take up to 24 hours, you certainly want the parents to know, your child was stung, by a bee or a hornet or whatever. They need to know that just in case a reaction does occur later on. Ticks are the worst. That's all I'm going to say. Ticks are the worst. They carry a wide variety of diseases. You all can see up there, it's very small, but I would certainly look up images, if it doesn't gross you out too bad, of different kinds of ticks. Different types of ticks carry different types of diseases. Some of the more common diseases here are Lyme disease, Rocky Mountain spotted fever, and a disease called ehrlichiosis. Anybody ever heard of ehrlichiosis? Yeah, it's a bad one. My mom almost died from it in 2017. I thought I would do a fun thing with my family, take them out to the center I was managing in Henry County. We went to the forest. Told everybody to do a tick check. 2 days later, she found a tick. 4 days later, she was in the ER with IV antibiotics. She had a fever of 105 at the age of 72, and she lost 20 pounds in 6 weeks because she couldn't move. She couldn't get off the couch. She almost died from it. And it was just this little itty-bitty, teeny-weeny tick that if we don't know and we're not telling our folks, do a tick check, they're not going to know either. A lot of parents don't know anything about ticks. They just, it's a little bug, I'm going to take it off. But if it's been there for 24 to 36 hours, at that point, disease transmission has started if that tick is infected with anything. And ticks, frankly, because our winters have been milder over the last 5 to 10 years, it used to be every winter tick populations would get killed off by the really extreme long cold. We don't really have that anymore, and so new generation of tick after new generation of tick, they're just surviving year after year after year after year. We're not killing off entire populations, and so because of that, we're seeing them out. I saw one at the end of March, which usually they're like a June, July, August, September sort of thing. So we're seeing more, and we're seeing them earlier and later in the season. Watch out for ticks. The best way for you all, if you're going outside, light colored clothes, a hat, long sleeve shirts, light colored clothing so that you can see them on you if you do have them. Tuck your pants into your socks. You can tell a true nature nerd if they have their socks over their pants. I always laugh at it, but you know that they know what they're doing. An insect spray with DEET is the only thing that's going to work. Your regular sort of off bug spray, if it doesn't have DEET in it, it's not going to keep the ticks away from you. And there is also a spray that you can use called permethrin. I would not recommend putting that on any children or putting it on your body because it really is meant for clothing only. You can get it at Walmart, you spray your clothes down, you let them dry, and it actually lasts up to 4 to 5 washes before you have to retreat your clothing. It's that strong. Do not put permethrin on your skin. If you're outside, walk in the center of the trails. Don't be going off trail. Don't be going into like the tall grasses and stuff because that's where ticks like to be. And when you get home, this is the most important thing because ticks happen. The most important thing you can do is check your entire body for ticks and remove any, and ticks you can remove with tweezers, but you've got to be sure that you get the head out as well, because they bury their little heads in, and if you just get the body and the head stays in, I'm sorry, I'm scaring you away from camp. I'm sorry. This is meant to make you feel prepared, not petrified, I promise. You're walking away with information, that's all. But you want to make sure you get the entire tick. If you leave the head in, it's going to stay alive and it can still transmit disease. Ticks like cracks and crevices, if you know what I mean. So like my mom found hers on like the hairline of her groin 3 days later. They love to go behind the knees, cracks here and there, behind your ears, in your ears. So you're not I mean, I sometimes will go camping and I'll find them like on my arms and stuff, but they like to get right in the places where they're not going to be seen and found. Do a tick check every time. We went to Raven Run on Saturday. When I got home, my daughter's 10 years old. I made her strip down and I checked her head to toe, every little nook and cranny, because I mean, you know, it's hard to see yourself. So have somebody look, backs of your legs, knees, that kind of thing. Make sure you check well. Poisonous plants. I got to deliver the bad news today. Now I understand why you guys made me do this. This is not fair. Poisonous plants, learn what they look like, pay attention where you are. I gave 4 examples. Some of them are the more common. Poison ivy, poison oak, and poison sumac. Poison oak, poison ivy is definitely the most, I would say, prolific in our area, but we do have poison oak. You know, there's the saying, leaves of 3, let it be. If you see something that looks like that with 3 leaves, just leave it alone. Don't go near it. Don't let the kids near it. And I would highly suggest, as you're doing your camps, do an inspection, right? I know a lot of times we're doing like building inspections and that kind of thing. Go out and look in your green spaces and make sure if you have it, it doesn't necessarily mean it's your job to go and take care of it and treat it. However, you need to know so that you're not rubbing up in it all day long and that the kids that you're working with aren't. The bottom one is the current burr in my side. It's called poison hemlock. It's everywhere. In the last 5 to 10 years, it's become way more prolific in central Kentucky. It is everywhere right now. It grows, I mean, it can grow really tall. Actually, Jess Pearsall told me a story last year. She was in her garden and she had planted some really different, interesting purple carrots. And so she went into her garden and she's pulling up her purple carrots that she was going to cook. It was poison hemlock, and had Jess cooked those for her husband and for herself, they both would have died. Poison hemlock is deadly if you ingest it. If you touch it, you will have a severe burn, blister reaction, and I think it's a beautiful plant. So if like the 10-year-old me were out hanging out at Heisel Farm Park, for example, it's everywhere. It's on the roadways. I was driving up Richmond Road the other day, and where we have the holiday tree in that median that Parks lights up every year? In that same median, and maybe forestry's treated it, I don't know, but I'm driving up Richmond Road and I could see it just hanging off of the curbing right there in the city. So it's encroached a lot into more urban areas in the last 2 or 3 years. It's very, very dangerous. Look for it. If you don't know what to do with it, call me and we'll figure something out, but you do not want your kids playing around, pulling, breaking, touching this plant at all, ever. If you are exposed to the top 3, the first thing you need to do is clean the area with rubbing alcohol first. Then you want to wash the exposed areas with just water. Don't use soap yet. It's urushiol. How do you pronounce that, Kenneth? Urushiol what? Urushiol. See, I can never get this word straight. Urushiol. That is the oil, like in poison ivy. First, you want to use just water so that you're not moving it around the oil with your soap. And then you'll wash with warm water and soap. Once you've done that, anything that you've had on you before you throw it in the wash, like your shoes, your boots, rub those down with rubbing alcohol too. More good news, heat-related illnesses. When I was putting this PowerPoint together, I kept Googling Armageddon, pictures of Armageddon, just so I could entertain myself while I gave you all this amazing news about all the dangers of summer camp. Heat-related illness occurs when a person's body cannot properly cool itself. We usually cool ourselves via sweating, but in extreme heat, sweating is not enough and our body temperatures increase too fast. Factors to heat-related illnesses: high humidity, age, obesity, any kind of fever, dehydration, sunburn, or any prescription drugs that a person is on. So that is all going to take up your risk level for having a heat-related illness of any kind. And I hate to tell you, the bad news is, number one, climate change is real. Number two, it's happening. And number three, we're just going to have hotter summers from this point forward. Right now, the projection for 90-degree or above heat days in Kentucky in the summers, we're looking at up to 40 days of summer that are above 90 degrees. And that's not going to get any better anytime in the near future. So this is something that in theory, everybody should be prepared for, because we have such high humidity in Kentucky and because we are going to experience longer periods of extreme heat. So if you have a camper out Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and it's 90 degrees, 90 degrees, 90 degrees, by Thursday, that person's already coming to you dehydrated, right? So you really have to look at this, and you really have to look at the weather, humidity levels, and really think about your balance of getting kids outside. Are they drinking enough water? Is it even safe for me to take them out for a third day in a row, right? Warning signs of heat-related illness. Problems develop when the air temperature exceeds body temperature. The body cannot cool itself at that point very easily. When the air is humid, and we have exceptionally humid summers here, your sweat does not evaporate quickly when the humidity is high. A person who works or exercises hard while wrapped in heavier, tight clothing or protective gear. Now, this would be more, I think, on the land management, possibly maintenance side of things, that people are kind of going out in heavier gear. So, think about what you're wearing to camp. Think about the weather. You get up and it's going to be like today. You know, the way we're all dressed is just fine. It's cool, it's beautiful and whatnot. But if it's 95 degrees and the humidity is at 79%, you really got to be careful. Moving on. I'm not going to read these charts to you all because I have a little kind of a briefer explanation, but I wanted this to be in your handouts just for y'all to have at camp. It is the type of heat-related disorder. We've got heat cramps, sunburn, heat rash, heat stroke, and heat exhaustion. The definition, which frankly, at the time that something happens to somebody, the definition doesn't matter. You've got to know how to recognize it. You've got to know what to do with it, which is why I'm not going to go into this in too much detail. This is sort of the trajectory of, is it mild or severe in regards to a medical condition? So what should I do and how should I react if my camper has heat rash versus if my camper is showing signs of heat exhaustion or heat stroke, right? How to prevent them, and we're going to get into the details in just a minute, like I said, of what to recognize and how to react. So I'm not leaving you hanging on that. Preventing heat-related illnesses, obviously drinking plenty of fluids. And by fluids, they don't really mean like highly, heavily sweetened iced tea, right? You got to drink a lot of water. That's one thing that people think, oh, I had 3 Cokes today, I'm fine. Probably you're not. Drink water. You know, if you know you're going to be out in the heat, and soda's good, don't get me wrong, it's okay to have them, but not when you're going out into massive heat conditions. Drink plenty of water. When you sweat, it's removing minerals and salts from your bodies, which is where something like a sports drink, Gatorade, Powerade, you know, something like that that's got electrolytes in it is going to help as well. Drink more water than usual. Don't wait till you're thirsty. What is thirst the main indicator of? Yeah. By the time you feel thirsty, the process has already started. So don't wait until you're outside laying on the ground thirsty. Kind of try to pump that water through yourself even the day before. You know, Steph's got a camp coming up. It's Sunday afternoon. It's 95 degrees on Sunday afternoon. She knows it's going to be between 85 and 95 degrees the rest of the week. Start drinking your water Sunday afternoon. You know, my son plays soccer and his coach always tells the boys, ahead of time. Drink your water 2 days ahead of time. Just be pounding the water so that the day the game comes, you're not even at risk for dehydration. Wear proper clothing and accessories. Again, this is where it kind of like, do I want to get a tick or do I want to, you know, be okay in the heat? Lightweight and loose-fitting clothing. Using a wide brim hat and sunglasses, SPF 15 or higher. I think it says of higher on there. I should have put or higher, my apologies. Always using sunscreen. Limit active outdoor time to morning and use shady areas. And be sure to pace yourself. A lot of times people like to go, 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 and they don't realize, like, I need to just sit in the shade. There's nothing wrong with sitting in the shade and having kids observe nature passively. That's actually a really cool, you know, Jill, you've got your garden there. That's where you could bring in language arts. That's where they could write a poem about what they're observing, or they could draw a picture. You know, there are ways that you guys can construct activities that are not as active on those really hot days. So the kids are still engaged in learning, but they're not out there killing themselves because of the heat. Recognize, evaluate, and act. This is the important part of heat-related illness. Heat cramps are typically painful muscle spasms that you can't really control. What you want to do in that case is have the camper sit, drink water, sports drink, stretch out, ice the muscles. They should be okay. And all of the symptoms, again, are in those blue tables that I added. Well, they're blue up here. They're not blue in there. Heat exhaustion is heavy sweating, rapid pulse, confusion, dizziness, fainting, fatigue, headache, pale skin. You would want to lay the camper down on their back in a cool area, immediately call parents and caregivers, and call for medical help. What I would say is this: if you have somebody with heat cramps, they're fine. I mean, they should be okay. If they want to go home, send them home for sure. But if it's anything else, we're not doctors. We don't get paid doctor salaries, so let's not pretend like we know. If you think someone's got heat stroke, heat exhaustion, whatever it may be, make a phone call. Even if it's just to your supervisor to say, hey, I don't really know what to do right now. What do you recommend? Make a phone call. You would remove excessive layers of clothing. Sports drink, again, a Gatorade or something like that. If the person is vomiting, don't give them anything. And you would want to cool the camper down with cool water spray, wet clothes, and a fan. So if you can get that person inside and kind of wet their clothes and put them near a fan, that's going to be the best way to kind of counteract that heat exhaustion. Heat stroke, that's when body temperature gets high, they're in an altered mental state, they're nauseous, they're vomiting, their skin is flushed as opposed to pale, rapid breathing, racing heart rate, and a headache. Call 911 first and then call the caregivers. Get the person inside and out of the heat. They recommend getting the person immersed completely in cold water as soon as possible. Now, I don't know how many of you have bathtubs and bags of ice just hanging out at camp. You probably don't. The most important thing you can do is get the person out of the heat, indoors. This suggests removing as many layers of clothing as possible. I do not suggest that in a camp setting. Wet their clothes as much as you just pour cold water, pour cold water, whatever you can do to cool that camper down until help arrives. Severe weather. This is my last bit of bad news for you. We also have severe weather in Kentucky. In the summertime, I did not put the winter really, it was pointless because we don't really have camps that time of year. Tornadoes, flooding, straight line winds, and lightning. Preparedness in severe weather, the most important thing you can do is stay informed. We live in 2022. There is no reason and no excuse to not know that a storm is coming in 2022. It's impossible to be surprised by bad weather today if you're being a responsible parks employee, camp staff, whatever that may be. You check your weather every day, you look at the forecast, you look at the radar, or you just look outside. If the sky is dark and the sky is green, you better be running, right? Always stay informed of the weather if you run a camp, period, every day. Listen to and watch your weather updates. Take any and all warnings seriously. If there is any kind of warning that says, you know, there's lightning 100 miles away from you, well, guess what? That lightning that's 100 miles away can quickly be right on top of you. If you don't care for your own safety, that's one thing. But when you're talking about the health of 20, 30, 40, 80 kids, You have got to get inside immediately when there is bad weather in the area. Head to shelter, know where your camp shelter is, and I'm sure you all as camp directors, work with your staff on those kind of safety policies and procedures. The last clap of thunder that you hear, you need to wait at least 30 minutes to go back outside. It's not this, my husband does it all the time. It'll be 5 minutes later and he'll go out and he'll be like, oh yeah, it's done, we're good. Come on, let's go back out. No. Because if it's 30 minutes this way, lightning can still strike back here. The storm is still in our atmosphere and can strike anywhere in a larger radius than what we would assume. Never go near or drive through floodwaters, which during camp you probably won't be driving anyway, but that's just a helpful safety tip. Keep all of your campers together, and after a storm goes through, be sure to check on everybody. If it is a tornadic event, of course, you've got to, if you're okay, whatever you need to do, call 911, whatever needs to happen, but check in on everyone. Maybe you have, this counselor is assigned to this group of kids, they're responsible for their group of kids. However you all break up your groups during regular camp, make sure you're checking in and staying calm and alert.
We'll go ahead and cover van safety real quick. I'll try to run through this so we still hit the high points, but get exactly what we need. So if you are operating a vehicle for LFUCG, obviously you have to have a current driver's license, and if you are driving certain vehicles that have an X amount of people above them, you have to have a CDL with a passenger endorsement, not just a regular driver's license. So these are things taken directly from the LFUCG website about what we should and should not be doing on, obviously eating, drinking, grooming activities, no prepping your hair, operating electronic devices, searching through purses, gloves, glove boxes and all that stuff, searching around, not fumbling, not paying attention. People will call and report if you are driving a van and you are not paying attention. They will call quickly and immediately and think that they are the authority over you. So just keep that in mind, that you're being watched at all times. All drivers are way over their status as representative of the government. So basically this is saying when you are out there, you are representing LFUCG. So careful on the hand gestures, try not to cut anybody off, make sure you're using your turn signals, follow the rules of the road, pretty simple. Under normal conditions, you should always turn your headlights on if you're using a city vehicle when you're driving. If you are, and always the rule of thumb is if you have to turn on your windshield wipers, you should turn on your headlights as well. The thing is, in a lot of our vehicles, unlike current vehicles, all of our vehicles are older and you have to turn those lights off or you're going to have a dead battery wherever you go, which is many of us has probably experienced at some point working for the city, being in Kings Island with a dead battery. All right, so if you are going out of county, let's say you're taking someone even to Scott County, you have to get permission from the director first. So you need to have a list of all the passengers, who's driving, when you're leaving, where you're going, what vehicle you're taking, when you're expected to arrive back. This must be signed off on and you have to have a copy back before you depart, okay? This is actually on the risk management section too. So you can find this at risk management. I just added the Parks and Rec on top. Basic operations. So these are a ton of SOPs, and I'm not going to go over all of it for you, but basically when you start to drive a city vehicle, you need to secure the key, make sure you sign it out. Some places, like if you're not an employee or if you don't work for ESP and you come to borrow a van from another section, I will take a copy of your driver's license, and a lot of places will do that just so they have something on file that you're driving. There is a binder in most of the vans, and they have a daily inspection report, which we'll see in just a minute. But basically, you're going to walk the perimeter of the vehicle, make sure there's no dents, dings, lights are out, flat tires. Everything looks to be ready to rock. And at the end of the day, please make sure you lock the vans. The vehicle inspection log, like I said, inside you'll have all kinds of information for the log, but the books will contain everything you need. What do you do if you get into an accident? What happens if your car breaks down? Who do you call? What times do you call? You can't call certain people at certain times. Fleet closes at a certain time, and if it's 6 o'clock at night, what are you going to do? So these protocols here will help you get through those. And again, this is what you're going to start out with. So you're putting the date, the mileage, and you're basically going to pre and post of when you're driving your vehicle. So you're going to check off that everything's good to go. That way, if there's an issue with the vehicle, especially mechanical, Fleet can go back and look at these and say, oh, it happened between here and here, and this is when it is. So this is important, and actually Fleet has requested these from me before. So loading and unloading passengers, obviously, if you are taking kids anywhere, you have to have a transportation log, which lists the drivers and the passengers, just like you're out of county, but an internal one. And someone, not the driver, has to check them on the bus and check them off the bus every time. That log should stay with your camp and your camp records. That way, if you're going anywhere, everything's logged down of where you went, who went with you. It's in the long run, this can save you a lot of bacon. So here's an example of one that we use here at ESP of a transportation log. So it's got Monday through Friday, and each day the person that's doing it can initial when they're doing it, what kids get on the bus, what time, where you went, and we have tons of copies of these, and I can get you an emailed copy of this as well. And always checking the back seats, going through, making sure all the seat belts are unclicked. You know, obviously the kids should be wearing the seat belts, but all the seat belts are unclicked. Everybody's out of the van, and all their belongings, including food, out of the van. All right. In case of a breakdown, fleet management is open from 7 to 5. But if you have a flat tire or any of that, you can always call Bluegrass Towing. Their number is there, and also it should be in a book in your vehicle. If you have any kind of other issues, you obviously should notify your supervisor as well, because they may have to get a replacement vehicle for you the next day, and securing those is not always easy. If you are in an accident, you need to obviously immediately call the police, 911. You're going to talk to your supervisor, let them know, and then you'll probably be filling out a handy-dandy SP302. When you are filling this information out, you're going to need details yourself. Please do not stand back and just let the officer take care of all the information. You should be actively getting their information. What kind of car? What's the license plate number? Because some people see that city vehicle and they're like, oh yeah, I just hit the jackpot, right? So you have to be very careful of what you're doing and what you say. You never admit fault. You speak to the officer privately, but definitely get the other person's information, okay? All this information here is, again, all in your books. And once you get these taken care of, you'll turn them into your supervisor, and they'll go from there with your accident report. This is what the investigation looks like. So it's going to ask you very detailed stuff. Date, time, who did it, what's your driver's license number, who are the witnesses, what vehicle it was, describing how it happened. Remember, you don't use people's names when you're doing this. You use this person or the person that was hit, or you would be Unit 1 and they will be Unit 2, and that's why a lot of police officers do it. They just label them Unit 1, Unit 2, Unit 3, and that's how you go about it. These are also on LexLink, and they're fillable PDFs, so you can just pull it up, type it in, and ready to go, but there should be copies in your book as well. How to fuel your vehicle. We go through Speedway Super America. Every vehicle should have your own gas card. You have to have a PIN number to get gas. If you do not, you can call over to Fleet Services, and I think it's Dominic Rawlings who's still doing that. So they can get you a PIN number. It's a pretty simple process. One thing you cannot do is use your Speedy Rewards card. You will get busted getting points off City. You can't make a profit off of City vehicles' gas. All right, so that's happened before too. You should do this way before you go anywhere. You should secure it early, because sometimes it takes a few days to get that PIN number back. And always before you leave, before you're checking the gas tank, make sure that card is in there with you, and always make sure it's not the expired one. Sometimes we're supposed to take them out and exchange them. Sometimes I've seen that not happen before. Make sure they are to date. Most of them should be. I don't see how they wouldn't be, because you have to take one to get one. So when you get the new one, you have to turn the old ones in. This is another letter that should be in there. This is your insurance letter. So this one is going to cover us through 2023, or actually this one's 2022, but we already have the new one out, and those were emailed out last week, actually, the new vehicle insurance. So these should be both of them, the new one and the old one, because it doesn't expire till May 1st. But this is your proof of insurance, and this is what it should look like. So we're going to do 2 videos now. These are bloodborne pathogens and reporting the guidelines and regulations.
Today we're going to cover the bloodborne pathogen procedures for the Lexington Fayette Urban County government. Hi, I'm Mike Skidmore, and I serve as the manager for risk, safety, and loss control management at the Urban County government. My telephone number and email contact information is available on the screen, and I encourage any employee to reach out to me at any time if you have questions on safety or loss control or unpaid work for the employees of the Irvine County government. Today, our goals are simple. We want to make sure that we increase our knowledge on the bloodborne pathogen procedures related to any rules or laws, and we want to make sure that we understand the methods to prevent or reduce exposures to bloodborne pathogens from our work. OSHA Regulation 29 CFR 1910-1030 is the bloodborne pathogen standards by OSHA. It requires that we have a training program, that we cover the engineering controls, the workplace practices, the personal protective equipment and clothing that we will use on the job to prevent exposures. There's also detailed information in the regulations on medical surveillance, hepatitis B vaccinations, signs and labels, as well as other standards and regulatory language that may be unique to the workplace depending on your job responsibilities. The body's natural defenses provide a very good natural barrier, assuming that you are in good health and that your skin is intact. The skin, mucous membranes, airways, gastrointestinal tract, and genitourinary systems, if you're healthy, are very good barriers from bloodborne pathogens. The immune system is built up with the primary tool being the white blood cell. It detects any type of foreign body in the blood, it surrounds it, and releases antibodies in an attempt to remove it from the body. However, our white blood cell and our immune system can be overcome when pathogens and germs enter into the body, and infections and illness can result. What we need to understand, in order for a disease to be transmitted from another person to you through blood or bodily fluid, number one, there has to be a pathogen present in the blood. You must be susceptible. There has to be enough pathogen in the blood, and there has to be an entry site. None of us can look at blood or bodily fluid and tell if a pathogen is present in the blood. So we treat all blood or bodily fluid as if it's potentially infectious. There are primary ways that a pathogen can be transmitted. We have direct contact from another person to you, typically from administering first aid or helping with cleanup of blood or bodily fluid. Indirect contact is when there's blood or bodily fluid that is on a doorknob, maybe on a desk or a table, a tool, and you didn't realize it, and you grab that knob or that tool and you transmit that blood from that surface to you. And certainly, airway transmission from somebody sneezing or coughing, although it is a lower risk, it still exists in the workplace if it enters into your airways. And vector-borne transmission of a disease from typically mosquitoes. Transmission at the workplace, routes of entry. Certainly, an injury with a contaminated sharp object such as a needle or broken glass. If you stick yourself or get cut with such objects that can transmit a pathogen from that object to you. If you have any open cuts, nicks, or abrasions, certainly that's an exposure route into your blood or bodily fluids. We encourage all employees to cover any healing wound with a bandage before reporting to work. If you have a healing wound that is significantly scabbed and you're uncertain whether it should be covered or not, please cover it up. We also recommend while your wound is healing that you cover it with a waterproof bandage rather than one of the athletic bandages, because waterproof bandages are impermeable to other fluids. You can also have an exposure through your eyes, your mucous membranes of your nose, or your mouth. You can get contamination, as we mentioned earlier, from touching through indirect contact other objects. Diseases of primary concern include hepatitis A, B, and C, HIV, herpes, as well as a variety of other pathogens that can be present in blood or bodily fluids. The symptoms. Symptoms for herpes include headache, sore throat, swelling of the lymph glands, and a general ill feeling. Symptoms for hepatitis A, hepatitis B, and hepatitis C, although are unique from one another, they do have some common similarities: yellowing or jaundice of the skin and your eyes. Also, flu-like symptoms could also include fever, fatigue, nausea, depending on the stage of the hepatitis. And certainly HIV includes weight loss, cough, fever, profuse sweating, fatigue, swollen lymph glands, diarrhea, spotting, pneumonia, memory loss, depression, and other neurological disorders in its more advanced stages. Hepatitis B. Just like hepatitis A and C, the liver resides in the upper right-hand quadrant of the body, as you see in the diagram on the screen. Common to all hepatitis is the inflammation of the liver. It can cause pain in your abdomen. It can also cause nausea and vomiting, loss of appetite, jaundice, fatigue, and itching. These are abnormal symptoms. And if you experience those, you should pursue a consult with your licensed medical health care provider. Reducing your risk in the workplace includes engineering controls, work practices, personal protective equipment, housekeeping, and Hep B vaccination series, which is available to all employees of the Urban County government. As I mentioned earlier, at the Urban County government, we utilize universal precautions when we encounter blood or bodily fluids. All employees must treat blood or bodily fluids as if it's potentially infectious with a bloodborne pathogen. You must utilize the appropriate level of personal protective equipment that matches the situation at hand. Engineering controls, most common, are the physical and mechanical barrier systems to eliminate hazards at the source, such as using sharps containers, which are puncture resistant to needles and other sharp objects such as broken glass, self-sheathing needles, tongs, and other specially marked bags, such as biohazard bags that you see in the center of the diagram on the screen. Housekeeping. All employees of the Urban County government have a responsibility to tend to housekeeping routinely throughout the day. This includes wiping down common surfaces, shared equipment, and objects with disinfectant cleaners. We also want to make sure that any equipment or gear that we utilize is wiped down as soon as possible, especially if it's been contaminated with blood or bodily fluids. Work practices. We want to make sure that we take the necessary steps to avoid being punctured by needle or sharp objects in the workplace. We ask that if we need to collect such, that we use tongs or a dustpan and a broom. Do not handle with your hands, whether you have a glove on or not. Don't place your hand under trash bags when taking out garbage or under laundry bags where needles or broken glass could push through and cut you. We want to make sure that any materials that are contaminated with blood or bodily fluid are placed into the biohazard bag so that they are appropriately labeled. We want to make sure if any container is contaminated on the outside, such as a sharps container, a biohazard bag, or a first aid kit, that we clean those surfaces or place them in another container that is clean to the outside. We ask employees to be alert and constantly engaged in these practices throughout the summer and during your career at the Urban County government. Work practice controls. If you cannot wash your hands immediately, we ask that you use sanitizer with at least 60 to 70% alcohol concentration by volume. As soon as you are able to wash your hands with soap and water, we ask you to do that. And certainly if you've had an exposure to your eyes, nose, or mouth, we ask that you flush those areas thoroughly before going to the doctor. Personal protective equipment. For 90% of our encounters with blood or bodily fluids, gloves, medical gloves, will suffice. This is typical when providing medical first aid assistance to another employee or patron within our programs. However, there are times when more protective equipment is necessary, when we must wear gowns or overalls, face shields, or eye protection. We want to make sure that when we're done providing cleanup or assistance that encounters blood or bodily fluid, that we carefully remove any type of gear, whether it's gloves or the gowns, and that we dispose of those items appropriately in a biohazard bag. Bloodborne pathogen kits are required at all work locations. They include gloves, masks, gowns, eye protection, caps, booties, and other types of protective equipment to protect your street clothes from becoming contaminated with blood or bodily fluids in the event that you need to clean or decontaminate. It also provides proper protection against splashes, sprays, splatters, or other droplets that could also enter into the facial area. Anytime that we have an emergency at the Urban County government, the very first thing that the employees need to do is step back and size the situation up. Render care only after you've summoned for additional first aid assistance. Also, be mindful that if somebody is cut on the job, most people will go to the bathroom or seek out a first aid kit. The blood that you see is rarely the only location that the blood is at. Most people will drip blood on their way to the bathroom or on their way to look for a first aid kit or for additional assistance. Please stop your program or what you're doing and make sure that you cordon off these areas until we can define the scope of the situation so that it can be cleaned appropriately. Make sure that before we provide assistance that we've put on the personal protective equipment necessary to protect ourselves, use additional barriers as needed, especially if you're providing CPR. We want to make sure that you're using a mask if it's required. Also, when we're done, we want to make sure that we've cleaned all equipment utilized with disinfectant before returning it back to the area where we got it. Any materials that are contaminated with blood or bodily fluid, again, need to be disposed of in the biohazard bag. Post-exposure follow-up. If you were exposed to blood or bodily fluid on the job, you are entitled to medical consultation with a licensed health care provider. We will also do our best to test the third-party source of any blood or bodily contamination that you are exposed to. You are also entitled to medical counseling after your initial consult with your licensed health care provider. Follow-up testing will be prescribed by them. If during your course at work at the Lexington Fayette Urban County government you have any questions related to blood or bodily fluids on the job, please consult with your supervisor or your manager. Thank you. Reporting guidelines and requirements for the Urban County government. Hi, I'm Mike Skidmore, and I serve as the Manager of Risk, Safety, and Loss Control Management at the Urban County government. My telephone number and email contact information is available on the screen. I encourage employees to contact me anytime that you have a question related to safety and loss control. I'm paid to work for you. First thing that we want to cover today is reporting unsafe conditions. Certainly in the workplace, if we have any slip or trip hazard, we want to make sure that that has been reported. We also want to report any issues with our buildings and grounds. We want to make sure that any type of equipment or gear that is substandard has been reported to the supervisor as well. Environmental concerns such as poor lighting, any type of mold, anything out of the ordinary, please report that to the supervisor. And any other concern that may pose a liability for the Urban County government or safety hazard to our patrons or our employees, we want to make sure that we get on top of that as soon as we can. We want to make sure that all of our employees are proactive and all of our employees are part of the solution. Responsibilities. We all have them. The employees, we're responsible to report all incidents and hazards as soon as reasonably possible. The supervisor has the responsibility of investigating all incidents and completing the necessary paperwork and reports as soon as possible as well. An incident. This is an occurrence that causes an interruption to an intended course of action resulting in one of the following: a reportable injury to a person, a chemical or illness exposure to a person, damage to vehicle, equipment, or property. A reportable injury. This is one that requires an injured person to stop his or her activity, to leave their work station for any period of time, and requires either immediate or possible future medical care or first aid. For the sake of definitions, medical care is typically advanced care provided by a licensed health care provider. First aid. We typically separate first aid from the first aid where we can self-treat from the first aid that we need assistance. If we need assistance to provide first aid to ourselves, we certainly want to know about it. Manifestation of symptoms. If we come to work and we're in good health and somewhere during the course of our work we manifest a symptom to include recognition of severe pain, fever, skin rash, a limp, fainting or dizziness, any severe cuts or abrasion, or any other type of symptom that appears for a reasonable period of time after the work that requires first aid or medical treatment, that needs to be reported as soon as possible. To review, an investigation and report is necessary for first aid that cannot be administered by oneself or medical treatment is rendered. If we have a non-employee that appears to be injured due to our operations or our property, we certainly want to get the information and make sure that it's reported correctly. If there's damage to our vehicles, our equipment, or our property, any manifestation of a symptom that occurs within a reasonable period of time during the course of work or after needs to be reported. Any exposure to a harmful or toxic substance needs to be reported. And certainly any employee or any citizen that comes to us that wants to file a report is entitled to do so. Taking care of the injured. At the Irving County government, there are times when we need to call 911. If you are calling 911 from an Irving County government extension, you need to dial 9 to get an outside line and then 911. We also encourage people to make sure that we call 911 for conditions such as severe bleeding, difficulty breathing, chest pains, severe back injuries or head injuries, or any time that somebody is not quite right, we can call for an ambulance, and it does not cost us anything for a wellness check. We encourage all employees to call 911 if we are at all in doubt of a person's medical condition. Some injuries will require a trip to the emergency room, and we want to make sure that none of our employees are sent to the emergency room without a supervisor that goes with them, or someone that has been delegated by upper management to attend to the situation if the supervisor is not immediately available. The employee has the right to choose the hospital or doctor of which they seek care from. And we also want to make sure that we take care of all primary injuries before proceeding with drug testing. Police reports. We need to get a police report for any vehicle that's involved in an accident and it results in damage or an injury to the following: a vehicle, either ours or someone else's, equipment, property, or any person. We also must get police reports for criminal activity. Examples include vandalism, theft, burglary, and assault of an employee. An assault of an employee also includes verbal threats of any kind. Third-party administrator, also known as a TPA. We want to make sure that everybody understands that the TPA processes all the claims for the Irving County government, as well as our work-related injuries. Our TPA likes to know, certainly, of any serious injury, hospitalization, or death of an employee or citizen as soon as possible. We also want to make sure that if we're involved in a serious accident where there's question at who's at fault, that we notify our TPA as soon as reasonably possible as well. Our TPA is Risk Management Services Company. Their telephone numbers are on the screen. Each division has an individual assigned as a divisional insurance coordinator, and this person has contact information for our TPA as well. We have requirements for notifying Kentucky OSHA. Certainly, if we have an employee that dies on the job, or if we have 3 or more employees that are hospitalized from a single event, we have 8 hours to notify Kentucky OSHA. We must notify Kentucky OSHA within 72 hours if 1 or 2 employees is hospitalized from a single event, if we've had an amputation, which is defined as separation of bone, or if an employee has lost eye from the eye socket or vision. Kentucky OSHA telephone number for daytime working hours is posted on the screen, and for after hours, regional telephone number for Kentucky OSHA is posted as well. If you have an incident and you are unsure whether it meets the reporting requirements of Kentucky OSHA, please contact me and I'll assist you with the evaluation of those requirements. We want to prevent accidents whenever possible. When we do have a loss or an injury on the job, we have reporting requirements as well to the state. All paperwork must be processed through our division no later than 2 days after an incident, preferably sooner. Those have to be sent to the state Workers' Compensation Office. For this reason, we ask all supervisors to process the paperwork and reports as soon as they have been informed of a situation, either by an employee or through their management team. If during this process you have questions on the reporting requirements or you need assistance with claims, we have the contact information on the screen in front of you. Again, my telephone number, and I'm available to the employees at all times. However, if I'm out of office, Jada Griggs and Dania Channels, who work with me, their telephone numbers are on the screen as well, and they are available to assist you. Harold Mattingly, Claims Manager in the Department of Law, his telephone number, as well as Department of the Law's General Front Desk telephone number, are available to assist you with claims matters as well. Thank you.
So now we're going to run through the Kentucky State Regulations, reporting abuse guidelines and regulations. So this is pretty important. I don't want to speed through it, but I also want to kind of, in an effort of time, again, this will be emailed to you. The key is to know this number, right? And to know that being a citizen of the state, by law, you are responsible for reporting abuse. If you don't, you can also be fined, and you can also have jail time if you know it goes on and you avoid it. All right. Here are all the legal definitions of an abused or neglected child. I think we're pretty well versed, and a lot of us have been enough experience to working with children that we can see some of these signs. But just to point out a few, continuously repeated or fails to provide essential parent care. We can see that. We've had kids come in, they literally have zip ties tying their pants together. Or they have clothes that their brother used to wear that they don't have, and they have rope tying it together, or bread ties tying pants together. We've seen that more than once, unfortunately. Especially if you're looking at an abused or neglected child, there's not always a telltale sign of what it is, right? It could be mental, it could be physical, it could be verbal. So this is a dependent child. A dependent child is someone who is under improper care. Let's say they have someone taking care of them who can't take care of themselves. So, and they're also taking care of a child. That is also technically a neglect situation. So if you have someone that has limited physical abilities and they can't cook for this child, and this child's having to cook for themselves, that's a neglect issue. All right? So a dependent child is a child that basically has to stand on their own without the parent, even though the parent is present. So when to report, always report, no matter, even if you second guess yourself, you should always report. and your supervisor should report, okay? Documentation is key. They're going to ask you a lot of details. With this, we'll cover it in a second, but you have total immunity for reporting, right? You're not going to get in trouble for reporting. It's better to err on the side of caution. So, even if you're just a concerned citizen, if you're in Kroger and you see what you could technically think is child abuse, you can call that in and report that. You can give a description of the people, their car, or what have you, but you can report it at any time, not just at work. If you think there's an immediate threat, you obviously just call 911, okay? The number that we give you, and it'll be at the end as well, that number is 24 hours a day. You can call someone, and if you leave a message, they will call you back, usually within 5 minutes. And we've had to do this before, and they will call you back pretty quickly. Who is responsible for making the report? Anyone. So you can read all this if you want to, but it's anyone. And a supervisor who receives an employee report shall promptly report the proper authorities for investigation. Again, the more people that call and report, the more serious they're going to take it, the faster they're going to get it. If you give them a very vague anonymous report, they're still going to investigate it, but if they don't have a lot of traction to go on, it's going to be hard for them to do anything. So getting details is key. You all have applications and information on these parents. You have information on guardians, brothers or sisters. Siblings can abuse children also, right? You could have a 17-year-old living at home that can be just as abusive as a parent. So it's not just mom or dad. It can be an uncle. It can be anybody, right? And it can be someone at another camp, right? They go to another camp and they have a bad experience and they tell you, you're legally obligated to report that. How to make a report? Like I said, there's a couple different ways. There's actually an online portal that you can go to as well that you can link through the Cabinet for Health and Family Services, but the 1-800 number is probably going to get your quickest results. Here's what they're looking for. Child's name, caretaker's name, current location. Are the concerns about the immediate safety? Again, if that's the case, you're calling 911. And you want to give them as much detail as possible. We had X child come in. We noticed bruising. They complain about it. They talk about being in a bad home situation. Those need to be reported as quickly as possible. If you have firsthand knowledge of the family or family situation, which a lot of us will have by the middle of the summer, we'll know these families pretty intimately, you should be able to give a little more details than if you're just meeting them the second day of camp, clearly. Again, if you want to report, you have total immunity, okay? Unless the law states that failure to report child abuse can neglect and result in criminal charges. So if they know that you knew and didn't say anything, that's when you get busted. That's when your immunity is thrown out the window. You have to report and give as much detail as possible. Yes?
Isn't that doubly true if you're working for a licensed child care setting?
If you're licensed for if you're in a licensed child care setting, that's why I said supervisor, because you should report it, your supervisor report it, and if you link one up to your other supervisor who's in an office, they should report it as well. So it's the whole chain of command. Anybody you talk to this about has a responsibility to report it. If Phyllis and I are having a conversation in our office about a situation, then technically she would have to be reporting that as well, right? Again, we go on the privacy issue as well. Who you talk to is very important, and what you say is very important, and how you say it. Okay? I've actually encountered instances where I've actually told a parent face to face, I had to call child services on you today because of X, Y, and Z. Now, you are permitted to take this child home, but I'm going to let you know that I had to call them because they said X, Y, or Z. And even if you know this child possibly is lying or not telling the truth, you have to report it. And I told the parent, I don't know the situation, but by law, I had to report it, so I wanted you to hear it from me. That doesn't happen all the time. Sometimes you don't want to be in those situations. I knew the parent long term, so I wanted to be upfront with them. Plus, it was summer camp. It's only coming from one spot. They only come to one place. And your failure to report, which I'm surprised that it's so low, it's only a Class B misdemeanor, so you can get up to 90 days in jail and $250 fine, which kind of seems like a slap on the wrist for letting child abuse go. Indicators of abuse. So you have physical abuse, obviously hitting, kicking, biting. Physical indicators. Bruises on the body. So this is something to pay attention to. When kids come in, what do kids do all the time at summer camp? They fall down. If they have bruises on their arms and their legs, That doesn't necessarily mean abuse. It's where you can't see. It's on the torso, right? Hips to shoulders, this is your area where you know they'll say abuse. This is the area. Kids fall, they get bruises, they run into stuff. That's pretty common. We all have bruises on our legs from running into things. So, not saying that you take that with that's the end all be all, but you obviously have to notice something's going on if they favor something all the time. If they're like, no, nothing happened. If they keep denying it, there's usually something going on. Either they did something they weren't supposed to do, or they're told not to say anything when they come to camp. All right? Obviously, missing or loosened teeth. If it's a 6-year-old, they're going to be missing teeth anyway, right? So that's this part of it. Broken bones, head injuries. If you have any kind of with it all, and you've worked with kids, you're going to know when they come in if that kid's mood's changed or if something's different with them. You're going to notice immediately. More indicators, behavioral. Obviously, if they are introverted, they're coming back, they're pulling back from everybody, they don't want to talk, they stay away from the group, they don't want to discuss anything. Maybe that's not just shyness, right? Not everything's child abuse, but you always have to have in the back of your mind when working with children, is this something that I need to be more aware of? Talking to your counselors, the people that are directly working with them, hey, pay attention to X, Y, and Z, pay attention to this issue, this behavior issue, because it could lead back to them having an abusive situation at home. Also, if you notice a kid that came last summer camp was all happy-go-lucky, and this year they come back around and they're not that same issue, they're not in that same kind of mindset, that's a trigger for us. What's going on with this kid? Why are they completely switched? A 2nd grader and a 3rd grader shouldn't have that bad of a year, right? So when you have that transition and you notice a huge difference, that's a warning sign. Extreme aggressiveness, developmentally delayed. So you have a lot of children that they'll neglect their schoolwork. They don't care about it because they're just worrying about survival mode. So all their skills that they're learning in school is going in one ear and out the other because all they can think about is their situation that they're facing. Remember, you may be the only smiling face they see that day. They can see 100 people before they come to camp, but you may be the only smile that they see. So greeting them, gaining their trust, making sure they can depend on you, and being a city government employee, we are all safe places. Kids are allowed to come to us and express these concerns. Neglect, obviously, if they're coming in with consistently terrible clothes, if they're dirty, if their hair's not combed, if their teeth is not getting brushed, those are forms of neglect as well. Abandonment, obviously, hygiene, as we said, or if they're coming in and it's summer and only thing they're wearing is a sweatsuit. Well, it's 90 degrees outside. Why do you have a sweatsuit on today? And we've seen that because parents make kids wear long sleeves and long pants to cover bruises. They make them cover up everything. They say they can't go swimming today. They cannot go outside today. They have to stay inside. Obviously, you have sexual abuse and you have all these tons of indicators. A lot of sexual abuse indicators are aggression. There's a lot of combativeness and a lot of really stand back. They don't stay away from me. They don't want to talk about anything. They're embarrassed. They think it's their fault. When you look at a lot of abuse, the children usually say, this is my fault. I've done something wrong here. I didn't put the dishes away. I didn't fold the laundry. I didn't feed the dog. And that's usually what it leads to, right? You have all these things of blaming themselves. Protective services intake flow chart. So basically you can see once you report it, what happens and the time frame of what happens. Like I said, calling is much faster, but you can email, and it's all anonymous. You don't have to give your name. You can if you want, but you don't have to give your name. You don't have to give your phone number. You call, I want to report this. Here are the circumstances. If your supervisor is reporting it, please make sure they have the exact same detail they're giving, right? You want it to be a consistent message to the cabinet. All right, pretty simple. I know I flew through that. Here's all the numbers that you need, and you can also always go to the website and send an email, but 911 if you think something's immediately going wrong or something's happening. I've not had to call 911 luckily, but I definitely have had to report this, and it's probably at least once, maybe twice a year, and I'm sure that number will probably go up We got a lot of kids coming out of the pandemic now and kids coming home, and we're going to learn about things when kids were stuck at home. And I'm sure now we even kind of see that. Kids were stuck at home for a very long time, so all these issues that they had at home were amplified because now they're stuck at home. Now they're getting back out, some kids are going to start talking about this stuff. Last year was really bad, and last year this happened. So have your counselors be aware and have your folks be aware that these could be issues.
My name is Brian Rogers, and I am a superintendent currently with the Division of Enterprise. That means I work over at Picadome, and we are over the rentals and the pools and special events, kind of external special events, among other things, neighborhoods, stuff like that. This is Zach Martin. Zach is the new aquatics manager, so he is technically just over the pool, so he gets to concentrate on this stuff. I know all of you all have heard this a million times. Ladies, what are your names?
My name is Leah.
Leah? Aaliyah?
Kendall.
Kendall. Do you know where you'll be working?
Here.
Which camp? You're at Tate's Creek? Are you both with Kitty Capers or Arts Camp?
The pool and golf.
The pool and golf one. Curtis got you here. Yes. Okay, gotcha. All right, so the pools are kind of fun. And the first thing I want to get across is that we are all part of the same team. We're all Parks and Rec. Golf, recreation, enterprise, pools, natural areas, we're all Parks and Rec. So we all work for the same people, ultimately the mayor. And we are here to ask for your help. These guys have heard this before, but you know, it is sometimes people, the counselors like to think of the pool time as a break time. And it's a good time for you all to lay out, get a tan, maybe get on your phone, maybe check your Instagram, whatever, TikTok, whatever it might be. We would appreciate it if you would try to dial that back a little bit and remember that we are all a team, and when safety at the pools should be a very high concern for everybody in this room. We do have a lot of accidents that happen at the pools. We have a lot of injuries. And I'll go over a few of those most common ones, and I'll go pretty quick. But please know that, you know, we do expect you all to still be on the clock when you're at the pool. It's not one continuous break time. And so just do your best to help our lifeguards keep the kids safe. That's all we're asking. So before you go to the pools, there's a few things we wanted you to be aware of. We don't allow any cotton in the pools. No algodón en la piece. And that's, seems weird, but it's because cotton gets into our filtration system, and it's a sand filter system in most of our pools, and cotton gets in there and mucks it all up, and it screws up the system, okay? So the kids can't wear their t-shirts, they can't wear cut-off jeans, those are all cotton. What they can wear are like wicking materials like nylon shirts. They call them swim shirts, and you can get them anywhere, but as long as they're totally nylon or totally, you know, not cotton, then polyester, nylon, those combinations are fine. No cotton in the pools, no glass in the pools. That seems to be common sense, but you'd be surprised how many times we find it. And if you think that broken clear glass is an easy thing to find in a pool, it's not until a kid steps on it. So that's no good. So we actually say no outside food or drink, and most of the camps are good in that you guys are gonna eat your snack in here, or in the counting room, you're gonna eat your lunch somewhere else. But if you do happen to bring something like a picnic, or you wanna do something, just do the food part outside of the pool would be our request. If you could, please do the food outside of the pool. There's usually picnic tables outside the pool. There's a place in the park where you could do that, just not in the pool. Sunscreen, make sure have you guys already covered sunscreen? I bet you did, but hell hath no fury like a mom whose child has been burnt in your camp. And if they get burnt twice, oh my God, Harold's gonna hear about it. What's the other thing hell hath no fury? If your child gets bit in the camp. Whew, moms get really upset about that one. Okay?
Months ago, I had a child bitten by a dog at the park. So, in the face. So
I remember that one.
It can happen.
That was a dog. Who do they normally get bit by?
Another kid.
Another kid, yeah.
From another camp that you don't know and can't find.
And then all of a sudden you're not watching them, and then but you're the one the mom's got, so you're the one that's going to get in trouble. So sunscreen works best if it's applied 45 minutes ahead of time, 30 to 45 minutes, so that means before you get on the bus, okay, or before you start to walk over to the pool. Apply sunscreen, that's important. In terms of flotation devices, that means like life jackets or, God forbid, water wings. It has to be Coast Guard approved. So if your parents try to send them with the inflatable water wings, we're not going to let those in. Okay, we're going to tell you that you got to keep those off. They do make water wings that are Coast Guard approved, and they're more like a vest, and they come out on the arms and stuff. Those we will approve, but anything inflatable, pretty much, we're not going to allow in the public pools. If you work for TR camp, you know, we had some success last year trying to encourage them to wear swim diapers. I know there's nobody from TR here, but if one of your, you know, if your child, if that camper, this is a little bit of a gross rule, we call them fecal incidents, and if there is a fecal incident in the pool, if the feces is all still contained in its tubing, then it's only a 2-hour break where we have to close the whole pool down. If it releases from its tubing, i.e. diarrhea, we have to close the entire pool down for 24 hours. And so not only are you guys affecting your campers, but you're infecting the entire aquatic community because we have to shut the whole pool down. If you have severe weather, we talked about that a little bit, pools has the same rule. It's 30 minutes from the last lightning strike. So we're going to shut the pool down. We're going to clear the whole pool deck. That means everybody goes to their cars, or if we have room in the pool building, you can wait in the pool building, but some of our buildings aren't very big. You guys have to clear the pool for 30 minutes from the last lightning strike. Not the first lightning strike, the last one. So once you're at the pool, the majority of our accidents happen from two things. One, running on the deck, and two, the diving boards. Double bouncing off the diving boards, or trying to jump into another kid on the diving board, or trying to do a cannonball into a kid on the diving board. So those are two areas where we would actually ask counselors, camp counselors, to help us. There is no running on the deck, and so our lifeguards are sitting in a chair facing the pool, so we could use some help there in terms of you guys helping us keep the kids from running on the deck. It's usually they fall and they either have a terrible scrape on their elbows or their head or their knees, or they stump their toes on something, or they run into another kid and then they both have concussions. Those are the two places where we see the majority of our accidents. Help us watch the pool, help us, you know, keep an eye on your kids. It's not a break time. If you have a baby pool, those are for kids 7 and under. This is another big one where we think you guys can help us out. Keep the older kids out of the baby pools, all right? Only 7 and under are allowed in the baby pools. And that's important because big kids like to play rough, and that doesn't go over well with the little 2-year-old that's there with their mom, not in camp, okay? Lastly, I'll just say that sometimes it's easy to get excited. I know Tyrone and I are getting a little old for this, but back when I used to take the kids to the pool, they used to love to jump on my back. They used to love for me to throw them. They used to love for us to play chicken. Well, guess what? None of that's allowed. So no roughhousing. It's mainly the older kids. If you guys are going to get in the pool with them, which is great, the kids love that when you do it, but expect to come out with huge scratch marks all the way across your back. And just don't roughhouse with them because you're giving them the wrong impression, and the lifeguards are going to put an end to it, okay? Otherwise, the pools can be an extremely fun place. It is a bit of a break time for you all, and we understand that. You guys are allowed to lay out, but please, at least one or two, not all the camp counselors laying out at once drives us crazy. Okay, it doesn't happen as much as it used to, but just one or two of you up and moving around and helping the lifeguards keep the kids safe.
You cannot post any pictures, you can't discuss, you can't put any videos out, you can't do any of the selfies or anything with the kids and place it on social media, especially if that child has any kind of state assistance, whether it's linked to our camp or not. It's against the law. You cannot put them on any kind. You can't even discuss them. Don't have a Facebook conversation about this child and their behavior. Don't have don't put up a TikTok video imitating a child and saying, this is how they dance and look at this. So please be very careful what you're doing with the kids on social media. Make sure staff is very well aware of what's going on with social media. There is a CAO policy, which is not lengthy, but it's got a lot of legal terms in it. But basically the gist of it is, don't take pictures, don't discuss, and don't place children or your camp information because it may be showing in a negative light that you currently just don't see. We've had a lot of issues with staff in the past saying, oh, I love this kid and this family's great, and then they go friend them and their family on Facebook. That is a no-no as well. You shouldn't be friending children on Facebook. You shouldn't be linking your accounts or messaging each other. That's definitely against the rules. Pretty simple and straightforward. Don't deal with kids, don't deal with your work on social media, and you'll be fine.